The intention of justice is to see that the guilty people are proven guilty and that the innocent are freed. Only we have a problem here.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are taking a look at this case from a psychological perspective.
That their team was not focusing on Brian Higgins in trial number one. I mean, it's sort of an afterthought to them. And at only one point does Alan say, yeah, there's some evidence that Brian Higgins could want to wish harm upon
John. This is Brian Albert's call log.
We believe that there is evidence that Mr. O'Keefe was in the house.
I'm out here saying this is the goddamn murder, and there's so much evidence to support that.
We talked about Vince's theory that John could not possibly have been changing floor elevations at the house because he was on the road.
Big shout out to our attorney friends, Loophole Lawyer and Corey Hopkins, for the hard work that they're putting in to try to get us this information. Yuri Buchanan writing up a report of an interview that he gives at the home and with the presence of Brian Higgins' attorney. Really seemed like such a cool guy.
John makes me like this.
You would still need to see those messages to corroborate before making a full assessment. Dude, you did see them. You were on it.
John's own phone data shows us that he took 170 steps when he left the waterfall bar, and he didn't take any more steps until 12:21:10.
What happened outside was separate from anything that happened inside.
This was not the intent of that meeting. We were talking about a guy, potentially offing himself. Who? That was the concern. Trooper Proctor. That was the concern when we went to his house. So no.
Hold on. Have each of you been called murderers?
Who wants to be the one to give Matt the bad news?
I wanted to prove.
Do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty as to how those superficial abrasions occurred?
I do not.
She further found that the line of abrasions on his arm was consistent with blunt trauma, not an animal attack.
Do you have an opinion how those superficial abrasions occurred?
I do not.
Very strange indentation. Now, this was the thing that inspired conversation about Colin Albert's cleats.
And you never mentioned a tall, dark-haired male coming into the house, did you?
No.
Whoops.
No, if we had it enough, or we had it all, I should say. Kill me.
You were asked, a male showed up where?
I think it was one of the females.
And you answered, quote, showed up at the house. That I didn't know. I think he was there very briefly. I was half paying attention to it. Question, did that male come inside the house? Answer, I believe he did. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Because it's just so powerful to watch. As she walks to the left, he goes right to Higgins, and then by the end of this hour, somehow you see that Karen Reed has made her way all the way. Literally, she's like next. It's nuts. And then you see his behavior. You see how he starts to change, not only with like the peacocking and the fighting with Brian Albert, but you just see how he like comes alive, right? As soon as he like sees her and they walk in, you see his whole face change. It's wild.
But she advocates a conspiracy.
I am just a person who likes to understand.
Question, so you saw someone else come? Answer, somebody else. Yes.
And this is where we get to the basement and the garage. Looking at the house, we can see that if you went to the garage, it would not have registered one floor. And we can see that the garage is certainly not 8 to 10 feet difference to the main floor of the house.
Pointed to 18-year-old Colin Albert,
How are you?
a nephew of the homeowner.
So, and showing solidarity, you can see them there.
It's about getting justice for John O'Keefe. There clearly is an issue of integrity.
How dare they?
Justice for all. Only we have a problem here.
Mm-hmm. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy Monday, everybody. It is our Monday, now our weekly Monday show with Loophole Lawyer. Welcome.
What an opening
How
that
are
is.
you?
I'm doing well.
What's going on?
How did you get on that news station during the trial?
That was an interesting experience. I don't know if you've ever been. Have you been to Canton yet?
No.
Okay. So I was there for verdict watch, and I wasn't there when the verdict came down. I wish I had been, but we went, I think it was that Monday, and I think the verdict came Wednesday, if I remember correctly. But of course, like, it's a very friendly audience. So lots of people knew who I was, and there was just everybody was so amazing. It's just such a warm group. It really, really is. So, you know, it was like tailgating, but not tailgating, and tailgating with a bunch of people that are just very, very warm and friendly, and everybody is sort of very open to everybody else. So there was a news station just, walking through the crowd, and someone pointed me out because of being on YouTube and talking about the case. And they just came over with a microphone and started asking me questions. My sister was actually there too.
Yeah, I heard someone said that's Joe Benigno's daughter over there. And then the camera crew ran over.
I don't think this group knew that. Actually, there was another news outfit that did know my father, but they were completely separate. There was a couple of different appearances that I did on different YouTube shows and such that day. So it was fun, though. It was so much fun. Beautiful, beautiful day. Like I said, I wish I'd been there for the verdict, but I watched the verdict with Melanie and Mark. So that made sense.
Are we allowed to speak about your dad in terms of being a guest?
We can speak about it. Yes, I think we're going to bring my dad on. As of now, we're talking about bringing him on as a visitor on maybe next Monday. So,
wow.
Yeah, so that should be interesting. We'll see how that goes. And then you and I, of course, we have our wish guest list. So hopefully we'll be bringing lots of folks on in the coming weeks. It'll be fun.
Speaking of wish guest list, obviously I want to get people that have a different opinion than us and then learn from them. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but I think it's great. Obviously, I would love to have any one of the people that were in the house, anyone named Tuesday, I would love. And speaking of those girls from the foreplay skin girls, they issued 2 more strikes on our channel. I'm so nice to them. I always say kind things about them. I wake up and there's 2 more strikes from those girls. Of course, we counted already. And when the videos are put back up, then we have to decide whether or not to file a lawsuit against them. Corey Hopkins, obviously, she has a personal, I think, vendetta against some of them, which is always great because she's doing research. I think she's on vacation, and she's doing all the research in order to file lawsuits against them. I don't want to resort to that initially, but it may have to come to that if they keep issuing strikes for which we tell them that it's fair use. They're allowed to issue the strikes, but then again, if they do it again, once they lose, which they will, then we'll have an issue. So we'll see. Okay. But I love those girls. See. I don't want them to strike us. I don't want to strike them. They use content that they don't have ownership to. That doesn't matter. They could still have the right to strike my videos if I use their content without their permission. But then, of course, there's litigation, and that's what will end up being. But I don't want to be in that situation unless, of course, I can get Tuesday's contact information. But I'm so nice to those girls, and they still keep picking on me.
That's true. You are actually pretty nice to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, relatively speaking, certainly. It's true. It's hard not to. I struggle with them, right? Because there's some really interesting stuff that sometimes ends up happening with them on their channels. But I also struggle with not wanting to elevate it, not wanting to give it a lot of oxygen. And we're going back and forth, you and I, about whether to invite somebody, let's say, like Plevin, right? Like Kevin Lenahan. The reason why his name has come up is because he's not emotional about this. He's more rational. At least he sort of touts himself as being more rational. So I think he's on a very short list of folks who could come on with us and not start name calling. And that's the problem. If anybody, I've seen people in the comments say, oh, you don't want to bring on anybody who has a different opinion. And that's just not true. The problem is that anytime I interface with somebody with a different opinion, they immediately start name calling, like, you're stupid, you're this. And it's like, okay, this isn't going to work. Like, I can't have a reasonable discussion with somebody who just wants to be emotional and start throwing crap at you. So I struggle with whether this is possible because we're essentially living in two different universes. I hope there is. I hope there's somebody out there that we can have a reasonable discussion, because I want to understand. I want to understand how it is that you can look at the evidence objectively in this case and actually walk away saying, oh, Karen Reed did this, right? Because when you look at the objective information, and I just sent you and Corey Hopkins a list of that information right off the top, right? Just off the top of my head, I thought, wow, this is objective stuff, right? Objectively. Like, even if you go back and listen to Ian Whiffin's testimony and you listen to it objectively, Ian Whiffen is saying, John pulls up in front of the house. The device starts moving in a westerly direction towards the house, takes 36 steps, and then the geolocation data accuracy declines greatly. And the only reason for that would be there's a signal block. And the most likely reason for that would be he's in a structure. So it's like, that's Ian Whiffin's testimony, who they always want to put up at a high horse. So I just don't, I don't know. To me, it's very tough to try to have a reasonable discussion when you're just not dealing with the same way of seeing the world.
Yeah, and on some level, I get that. I don't think people are like that as much face to face, especially where you and I don't agree on a lot of things, but we can have a show every week and we can converse on text message. Although I did allow Corey Hopkins, which is my mistake, to come in with you. And of course, right straight away, she works her magic. I love Corey. Obviously, we both love women, Corey and myself, but I happen to fall in love with her, the way she looks and the way she talks and just everything about her. But she doesn't want anything to do with me, obviously, because of my anatomy. But the way she talks to women, I wrote to you guys today, you girls today, and I said, I'm taking notes with Corey because she's got this class that she uses, but underlying, we both have the same objective, like your dad taught you, right? So ultimately, Corey has the same objective your dad does. Corey loves sports. She'll be fine with your dad. I mean, we're all on the same page. That's why Corey and I can get along in theory, but she wants to get along with women, not necessarily me, which I get.
But we also all have the same objective, largely, which is to figure out what happened to John O'Keefe and to get justice for him, right? So, of course, we're going to all get along because at the end of the day, we're operating as one unit, trying to achieve the same objectives.
So when you say that, I went through the videos with Brian Higgins and the person that he claims came into the house, and that's a huge admission. But when I was listening to the Foreplay girls, one of them had said that that was Brian Albert Jr. he was referring to, which we know can't be. But then I was thinking, all right, there's a possibility he's referring to Colin when he initially gets there. And I didn't think about this. The reason why I like to hear other people's opinions, I like to hear the arguments, and you have to either be able to overcome the argument or agree with it eventually. That's the whole point. You can't just go into a case and say this happened or that happened. You have to be able to substantiate it and then deal with the argument that's going to counter it. So when Brian Higgins mentions a tall, darker-haired, skin kid person that comes in and it's a guy, it very well could have been when Colin was exiting, because we know Brian Higgins and Brian Albert are there when Colin's leaving or staying, however you want to put it.
I initially assumed this was Tristan. Have you seen Tristan Moore's testimony?
Yes. Okay.
So I initially assumed this is Tristan. Now, I go back and forth about whether or not he was even there, because I believe that Caitlin must have had a vehicle at the house, because she actually gets picked up at the house and taken over to the waterfall where Tristan meets the whole family, and then he goes back home because he's supposed to get up and plow in the morning early, which he doesn't end up doing, but not the point. The point is
How would you know, though?
Well, because...
plow the roads.
Plow the roads, right. He's supposed to get up because he gives it away. I mean, if you haven't seen his testimony, it's probably my favorite of all of the testimony, because you go in, you're like, this guy has nothing to do with any of this. His testimony is completely irrelevant. He's never spoken to the police. And he literally has a nervous breakdown, an absolute nervous breakdown. He cannot speak. He won't even admit that he's at the waterfall, even though we see him at the waterfall. Like, it's phenomenal. It's really great. And it's really an important testimony, because this is somebody who has nothing to do with this.
When
the
do you
hell
see
is wrong
Tristan
with you?
at the waterfall?
So he is at the, well, I guess we don't
I don't think
see
we
him at the
do,
waterfall.
because I believe that he was, if he
They're
was there,
way
it would have been
earlier.
earlier. Right.
You're right. That's
Yeah.
right. We don't see him at the waterfall. But I mean, that's a good point. I can't imagine that they would be lying about that, because I see no reason to lie about him being at the waterfall. Maybe I just imagined that he was there. But I can't imagine why they would lie about it, right? It doesn't help them to lie about it. The question is, however, there's some reason we can't identify about why they're insisting that she's picked up versus drove her own car. I have no idea. But if it's true that Tristan's at the house, certainly it makes sense that Tristan is the tall, dark-haired guy that comes into the house. And it is my belief that she leaves with Chloe before they say. So they are telling us that she left last. It's my opinion she left before everybody else, because she's the only one that could have taken the dog out of the house. And the dog isn't there. I mean, frankly, the dog is not at that house.
Yeah, it is weird, because I'm not 100% that the marks on John's arm are from a dog. I don't think that where I'm analyzing it matters yet. So, because I don't believe that Chloe or any dog caused the death, right? So if it was something during or after, fine. So that's not the issue. I mean, if Chloe did, we wouldn't be here, because they would report that, right? No one's going to fake a murder or go down for Chloe. So I don't agree with that part, but I don't know about the dog yet. I haven't even really investigated the dog. I was always looking for other options for the scrapes on the arm, and to me, I can't get there yet, because I'm still at this like time frame, which I'm progressing forward with it. And I know that Aussie put out a video with regard to the specific times, and there's evidence to the contrary. We got some video on that, and I'm always open to hearing that type of testimony. But the critical time now, it seems like that John was attacked at 12:32 when his phone stops moving. So Sam, let's just say Higgins does attack John and it's on the side of the house. Just assume that right now at 12:32, there's no more movement in the phone. And then I'm like, well, we know the phone eventually makes it to the flagpole underneath John's body. And in theory, we would have to see movement whenever they move the body, because the body wasn't there at 1:30, wasn't there at 2:30. I'm saying the flagpole. So you would see movement in the phone, but then it hit me when I was listening to the girls for some reason that if they just picked John's body up and his phone is in his pocket, would it even register steps?
No.
And that's where it's like, all right, that makes a whole, because initially, that's what it was. That guy Plevin, who originally thought Karen was innocent, said the same thing I thought, was John and, you're on your phone? Are we okay?
I'm good. I'm writing something down.
Sometimes people get texts like, oh, the audio is really bad or something. Like, look at that.
No.
Yeah, I need full attention. You know, I'm a fragile ego,
You got it.
whatever Emily calls me. So he had said, did they have the intelligence to plant the phone straight away at 12:32 where they would eventually dump John's body? That seems so unlikely that they would know to do that, meaning because there was no movement in the phone between 12:32 and then 6 o'clock in the morning. So if you're claiming that John wasn't always out front, which we are, then there has to be movement of the phone, not necessarily registering, but the phone needs to physically move to that point. I couldn't get over. Yeah, eventually. I couldn't figure out how they're moving it without any registering on the phone. But then I'm like,
wait a minute, though. There's one thing, though, that's this has always bothered me. What if they don't move the phone? So what if there's a fight, the phone either falls out or they deliberately don't move it, and then somebody's moving the phone that morning, and because there's a lot of very weird stuff happening, right? Carrie Roberts says she picks up the phone when she is grabbing the blankets, picking them back up, right, after John is taken away in the ambulance. But you can see very clearly on the video that that is not true. She does not pick up the phone at that time. And then when you're asking these people, whenever they're asked about the phone, there's a lot of just, the same stuff, just a lot of like fabricating deception, a lot of wishy-washiness. So it's confusing. Proctor
Where
says
though,
he doesn't
Sam?
get the
You're
phone.
saying wishy-washy in the testimony of John's phone specifically. Who do you feel is deceptive?
So, well, there's a lot of possible deception. I'm talking about when that phone makes it from the scene to the police. So
Gotcha.
nobody's clear about Carrie Roberts, who says she picks the phone up.
Okay.
She's very wishy-washy about it. When she says she has done it, clearly she didn't. I mean, we can see that she does not pick up the phone. She picks up the blankets. That is very, very clear. Does not pick up the phone. So maybe she misremembers. Okay, we'll give her every benefit of the doubt. But then Michael Proctor is saying, again, wishy-washy, that he doesn't actually get the phone until sometime very later in the day. There's some people that have suggested that the reason why Julie is opening up the car to put donuts in has something to do with the phone, because there's this, then there's people that are saying that there's during the 911 call, you can hear another car door being opened and shut, and like in the background, further off in the distance. So, the reality is, I'm not clear as to how that phone gets in the possession of the police, and I don't think we know whether that phone is with John when they find him, for sure.
Yeah, well, there's data as to the phone starting to move up around 6:02, and I didn't get there, but I've seen it, where the phone registers a location and it registers movement. And Carrie said that she had the phone in her possession for a while, and you start seeing all the steps going on with the phone.
Somebody has it.
Yeah, and I think that initially, because everyone's trying to force a different narrative as to Carrie Roberts being involved or having some culpability in this, that maybe people forced her into there. But does it matter at 6 o'clock who killed John O'Keefe at 12:32?
It only matters if there is deception around where it is, because it's possible, for the exact reason that you're saying, that somebody was aware enough, because these are two seasoned veteran police officers. Is it possible that somebody had the wherewithal to say, all right, the phone is a problem and we don't want to start moving this phone again until they find him?
Yeah, I'm not smart enough to have known that. As much as I know about technology, in the moment, I wouldn't even think about it. Now, I know these guys probably would think about it, but if what I'm saying is true and the phone does not register movement while it's on a body that's being pulled, dragged, or actually lifted, then it's really a non-issue for me. And I didn't think about that initially, because there has to be movement, according to our theory, of the phone sometime after John is attacked and gets to the flagpole. There has to be. Whether it gets registered on the phone is a different situation. The phone is not laying on the flagpole at 12:25, 12:26, 12:27. The phone is not on the flagpole, the final spot. So eventually it has to get there. And the question is, like, how did it get from wherever they attacked John to the flagpole?
Right.
And to me, the simplest answer is, if it's on his body or in his pocket, then if you're telling me it doesn't register steps when you're carrying somebody, then that would make sense.
Well, there's also, and this is something that I haven't taken the time to literally plot out, and something that obviously I should plot out, is the specifics of the temperature changes and when they're happening, at what time they're happening, what the discrepancies are, because that's another problem with Ian Whiffin's testimony. Again, they want to elevate him. Oh, he's this, I don't even know why, but regardless, there's changes in the data on the temperature. If theoretically this man, according to them, he's outside, okay? He doesn't move from 12:36 or whatever precise moment they say he's hit at the entire night, then the temperature data should remain constant on that phone because he doesn't move, right? So we should see very little shifts, but that's not the case at all. The temperature data is varying, right? So it just doesn't make sense to me why that is evidence that would support the fact that he's been outside, why Hank Brennan is elevating that.
Now, the phone temperature does decrease. There's no doubting that, according to the data. Decreases, and that's what you'd expect if you were outside. Now, usually when I have
but not to the degree that it would have or should have.
Well, if you go through the actual data, which we could, there's no reason why the phone would not decrease the way it did, the way I'm looking at it. Apparently, there's some weird theory that initially, because there's such a huge difference between the phone temperature and the outside temperature, you'll see a rapid decline initially. It's not going to be steady throughout the entire decline. As the two items, the phone and the outside temperature, get closer together, you're going to see less of a decline, which is what I saw. Now, are you questioning Sir Ian Whiffin's test where he put a phone into a freezer, but just somehow forgot to test what the temperature of the freezer was, and he forgot or didn't know what freezing actually was in Fahrenheit? How dare you?
That is the test. Yes, that is the test I am questioning. Right. And then Hank Brennan theory that, well, it must have been under him, and that's the reason why, it's not registering at the temperature that you would expect to see if he was outside, which again, that's a theory. I have absolutely no way to detect whether that is true, but I do know that my phone is very sensitive to the temperature. How quickly our phones start to, identify if they're getting too hot or too cold. They tell us right away, right? So I think that's something that the phone it's like survival of the fittest with humans. Phones are very similar. They're right. So they are programmed to survive first. If it's too hot or too cold, that's a problem.
Yeah, the wild thing is we can literally test this. I mean, we can go to 34 Fairview when the temperature is similar and have Emily lay in the snow with the phone in her back pocket and actually test it for real and get as close as you can, as opposed to just putting it into a freezer, which it's okay, but it's not the same. So any test we want to run at the house, I mean, the house is still there. How wild is that person bought that house and they didn't know that John O'Keefe died there?
They did not know. Nope.
That
did
is
not
wild.
Know.
That is absolutely wild. And it's cool because at least we still have the crime scene available to us. What are the people asking us here about this?
So before I get to that, you mentioned, it's funny, I was texting with Emily C. last night and I was saying, have you ever gone to 34 Fairview and tried to get the phone to record steps by driving by? Because that's something that any of us could do at any time. We do not need the homeowner's, permission to do that. Now, obviously, we're not all operating on the same operating system as John's phone, but I mean, theoretically, there probably haven't been huge advancements. And if there have, we could find out exactly what they were to be able to discern if that would make a difference. But we should be able, at that exact spot, at some point, to see whether or not it's recording steps, and we should be able to see that very easily. I was saying to her, if it wasn't snowing and, all things being equal, I would get in my car right now and drive up there just to be able to see if my phone would record steps driving back and forth past the house.
Yeah, and there's two differences. There's the elevation changes and the steps, which I don't like assigning these steps to someone who's driving in a car, but I don't know anything about the way these phone register things. I don't use that at all, the help app. So yeah, she can drive the actual path from the waterfall to 34 Ferry with the phone in her hand and then not in her hands and do all the work for us because she lives right there.
She can. She absolutely can.
And I know, Emily disagrees with she's like, there's no elevation change. I fine, but I looked at the topographical maps. There is elevation change. And if she was right, she would be right. But there is, between Waterfall and 34 Fairview, there is elevation changes. There's a bunch of them. So that can be
The house
tested.
is on a hill. It's on a very slight incline, but it's clear. It's on a hill and it's on a distinct curve. I mean, you can't possibly miss that, which is part of the reason why the idea that Karen Reed directly backed into John based on where they're placing the car. Thanks to Turtle Boy, who did that experiment, you can see it pretty clearly. He's trying to get up to 20 miles per hour. He can't even do that, right? And you cannot do it in a straight line. It would place her at 24 miles per hour at a full throttle. It would place Karen Reed and her vehicle squarely in the middle of the lawn at 34 Fairview. She'd be in the middle of the lawn. You've got, Julie Nagel approximately around the house at that time. You've got Jen McCabe saying she's staring out the window. You've got Brian Higgins waiting for them at the house. There's absolutely no way nobody hears or sees that. And then John would have been in the middle of the lawn, not in front of the flagpole. He would have been in the middle of the lawn, where, again, the idea, this is a very small lawn, folks. And the first thing you notice when you pull up in front of that house is this lawn is tiny. There's absolutely no way that if a man who's 6'4" is lying in the middle of the lawn, you're not going to see him. There's just no way.
Agreed. And that's the weird thing that really wasn't made clear in trial number one. You have to use visuals with this case. I don't know if Beverly was keeping them out or not, but you need to have visuals. You need to have visual of the timeline and visuals of the people and when people are looking outside, because there's no way you would miss a body there. And that's the weird argument for the foreskin girls. If they saw a body that was there, if the body was there, they would have seen it. Everyone would have saw it. There's no way everyone would miss it, especially if someone just backed up that fast, hit into a person, and he's just laying there screaming or something.
Or not moving. Even if he's incapacitated, you're going to see him.
That's right.
See him.
Did you see
They're by the way, also, I should say this, they're all saying, everyone says they come out the front door, which means they would have walked right out to see him.
Right. We know that. And that's why it's most likely just on the side of the house would provide that perfect cover, because no one would see it. When you're freezing and it's really dark in a suburban town, you just want to run to your car and you're not looking to the left, but you would see a big person on your front lawn. That's something you're never going to miss, especially if you have white cover sort of near it with the snow.
That's right. And Brian Higgins, this is where this was so stupid. They didn't think this through. They've got his Jeep right in front of the house, right in front of where he would have put his lights on. And there's no way that he'd put his lights on. The first thing you would have seen is John. Based on where they're saying, oh, he was in front of the mailbox. You're in front of the mailbox, in front of this very small yard, and then right in front of you would have been the guy in front of the flagpole. There's no way, unless you're blind and driving, that you would not have seen John O'Keefe laying on the lawn if you're Brian Higgins and your car is literally, which it isn't, but he's saying it is, right? So if you're one of these people, these ladies that believe him, how do you not? How do you explain that? I don't get it. I don't understand how you explain
it's a great point, and that shows you how important it was for Brian Higgins to place his car in front of the mailbox as opposed to really where it was. Because
that's a good point.
They never thought that fully through. Yeah, you're lighting up, and Microdots did a great job. And right before I even say that, Microdots did another fabulous job on their latest video, and the technicalities that they're doing, and just in terms of the technology, is brilliant. It's really, really great to check it out. Because I looked, I'm like, I'm going to get bored of watching the same old Sallyport video inverted. I don't really care so much about it anymore. And then I'm watching it, and I was hooked on it. Actually, Emily sent it 2 in the morning, and I'm watching this from 2 to 2:45 in the morning. It's really great. Yeah, but the first video that they did, which shows how it would illuminate, is something that jurors need to see, the foreskin girls need to understand, that even if you ignore all the other data, then you have to just realize practically, if a body's on that lawn, and that particular lawn, everyone's going to see it. In fact, all the neighbors are going to see it too. That's how it is in those suburbs.
That's why Lucky was so important, right? Because Brian Higgins doesn't see it. They have all these excuses for why Brian Higgins, okay, fine. But then you got this guy with this truck that's the monster truck, right? Like the Franken truck. It's got these lights on it. It's like stadium lighting. And he knows the house. He's attending to this home because he knows the Alberts so well. That's why the Ford Edge was reliably there. Because the other thing about Lucky that I don't know if everybody understands is it was not the popular choice to go up against the Albert family, and nobody would have understood that better than Lucky Loughran. He had no incentive to go against them. He used to work for them. He does not want these people on his ass. Last thing that man needs is the Alberts up his ass, right? I mean, and he knows it. And yet, because it's, he's a guy with integrity and he wants to do the right thing, he tells the truth. He was attending to that house. If a body was on that lawn, there is absolutely no doubt that he would have seen it. It's just undeniable.
100%. And did you see the video from the Canton Library at 12 o'clock and then at 5 o'clock?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I woke up thinking, yeah. So at 12 o'clock, there's no snow, really. It's just like the fact that you would claim you're plowing anything is so odd, and you would look so weird. I don't know why at the first trial they didn't even bring that up, but I guess it just wasn't part of their plan. And then even at 5 o'clock, it's not that bad. It's just, maybe that's where the 2.5, 3 inches is. But at 5 o'clock, not at 12 midnight when John's supposedly laying on that lawn 20 minutes later.
Well, and the other thing at the first trial that Lally did, and I see the video that I have queued up will show us that too, the library video. The other thing that Lally did beautifully throughout the trial, every time he showed the house, he showed it with like 12 feet of snow out front. And that was deliberately to try to put the image in the jury's mind that he's in a snowbank, that there's like 10,000 feet of snow, and make it sound like, it's the blizzard of, whatever, 45, like it's this crazy snowstorm. When, of course, like we see with Emily C., which is why it's so brilliant that she got up. God, think about the odds of that. She gets up that morning at 6 o'clock and is showing us exactly how much snow she's walking through. I mean, it's incredible that she has that. So let's take some of these folks' questions and comments, and then we can show this video. All right. So, Lola, the good dog, 26 cents, $4.99 says, highly recommend you speak with Broken Baker, who had Plevin on his show. You may reconsider. I wonder if any juror from trial 1 would come on. That's a great question. I bet you we could probably talk to the foreman. I don't know, because the reason why I doubt that anyone from trial 1 is because they've been pretty private. I don't remember. Well, no, I guess with the exception of
that Asian
guy. Yeah, what was his name? The guy that came on with Aiden. Yeah. He's the only person that I think we've heard from publicly after the first trial. It'd be very interesting to get some of their thoughts, though, about the verdict and how the second trial, and if anything was different. I'd be curious how many of them were actually following it pound for pound. But yeah, I mean, any of the jurors to come on might be interesting. Victoria, the one that worked on the second trial, the lawyer, that would be interesting. We'd have to inquire, but I don't see why not.
I would love that jury 4 person, because I'm not going to call him an idiot just in case he comes on here, but he believed allegedly that Karen was guilty, and he's supposedly an educated older white guy, and the fact that he almost sent Karen to prison is absolutely wild. Thank God for the girls holding their own in the jury room and not going for a lesser charge just to comply was great. But all this, Sam, in the end is beneficial to all of us, because we went through trial 1, but then you got trial 2, and that just gives us more data and more information to find out the real killer. So it took all this time and effort. And of course, that's not Karen's objective. It is to get off the charges. But now we have all that information from trial 1, and then obviously from trial 2. Yeah, I would love to have anyone. I don't care who it is. I would have Hitler on. I'm serious. I don't mind. I want to hear some opinion that's opposite, or maybe some people agree with it, to whoever we have on.
Yeah, I don't mind opposing opinions, like I said, provided that it can remain, it can remain an objective discussion and not just immediately become name calling. And it just gets so ugly because, folks are so emotional about it. I've seen the girls, Tuesday and Co. start crying, like literally lose their shit talking about Colin. I mean, it's just like, okay, like you can't have a rational discussion if you're going into it defended and emotional And it kills me that the very first sort of sentence or the very first show, Tuesday's talking about how they want other opinions. And then immediately that turns out to just be like they're literally going after anyone who disagrees. It's absurd. It is just really absurd. Holly Johnson, BD6LV, sends $9.99, says, Loophole Lawyer, just a guess, you are not a dog person. It's been testified by experts. What expertise, line of thinking, and facts lead you to believe those are not dog marks on John O'Keefe? Great question.
How dare you? I am a huge dog person. I've always had dogs my whole life. I love dogs. Yeah. And I had a miniature dachshund for 12 years.
I was going to say, I'm
years.
guessing they're small dogs. I don't know
we have
why.
in the city now. Now we have a, what is it called again? With a curly hair. It's a standard dog, but it's a miniature poodle. But he's black and tan. He's not like the typical poodle. Like he's and I don't know. So anyway, I love dogs. Now, I'm not saying that it isn't a dog bite. I'm just saying that I'm leaving open that possibility that it could be something else. And technically it could be. Like when I run it through any type of AI, there's definitely other options, not dog bites. But it could be. I've been bitten by a dog. My dog used to bite people. Sometimes they open up differently. But I'm not saying it isn't. I'm just saying I'm just leaving open the possibility.
The reason what sold me, and I've talked about this before, but my now fiance's dog was bit by a dog, and it looked like a BB hole. And at first, that's what we thought it was. We thought that we weren't there. The dog was being walked by somebody else, and all of a sudden, we're seeing some blood, and then there's this very distinct hole that looks like a shot, like she was shot with a BB gun. And so it took me a minute to put it together, but I realized this must be a dog bite. And then just so coincidentally, I was looking very closely at John O'Keefe's injuries, and you see that same exact kind of hole configuration from where, a tooth would be. So while these experts are not able to tell what is from a tooth and what is from nails, it could be from a tooth, it could be from a nail, I guess, technically. But when I saw those, they're so hard to recreate. It's a perfect hole, literally. Like, what else could possibly create that? So for me, that was the evidence, not so much the scratches, because yes, that looks like an animal, but anybody could, anything could give you scratches theoretically. A person could have done those. But the tooth, that was really, those little holes is really what sold it for me.
And it is very suspect that no one remembers the dog that morning and the dog is rehomed. That's super suspect. So if you're a dog person, it would be impossible to give up your dog, as bad as they may be. That's very suspect. It doesn't prove anything, but it does have some influence on whether or not I believe it's a dog bite / scratch or not.
And if we were to get into that house, if we were able to do a tour, one of the things that I'd want to do is check the sound, because here's the thing. A German Shepherd, like my dog, is literally 5 pounds, and you can hear her like outside without a doubt, right? You can hear her next door. You can hear her upstairs 3 floors. Like, you can hear her. She's 5 pounds. A German Shepherd, like, their sole bred purpose is to protect. Right. And so you're going to tell me that we would have heard that dog on the dash cam. Like, it's absurd. And it's a small lawn, guys. I don't care about how much the people want to say the snow. Okay. Yep. Great. But it's a German Shepherd whose sole purpose of being is to alert its owner of the possibility of a threat. And you've got all this activity on the front lawn. Nobody hears a dog. Jennifer McCabe doesn't see a dog. Like, I mean, stop with this. It's just absurd. It's totally absurd. So those are tough for me. So, I'm a behavioral scientist, right? Like, as a psychologist, somebody who's spent their entire life since I was a sophomore in high school when I learned about psychology, studying psychology. I look at these people, the House defendants, and they are lying. They are lying with every breath of their being. You cannot take that away, because it's a fact, right? Like, it's an absolute certainty that they are lying. So that's the part that I can't get past. Like, okay, I don't know anything about, software engineering. Okay, 227. I guess there's an argument to be made either way. I don't know anything about cell phones or Celebrite or Axiom, but I can tell you, there is no one on the planet that is going to be able to convince me that these people are telling the truth. I think that's obvious. If you know me at all, you absolutely know that already. But that's the part that I cannot get over. I can't get past it. Like, the lying is, and maybe I have a thing personally about lying, but the lying is so egregious. These are supposed to be law enforcement professionals and their family. Like, and I definitely want to get to this. I'm digressing, but I want to get to the police corruption piece because I have been really diving into that and have come to some conclusions about it that I want to talk to at some point. So Abacus Flinch 05 sends $20, says, my theory is that they turned off the phone after John died. His body is out there around 3, but forgot to put his phone. As the girls drive up, they realize it needs to be turned on because he couldn't have turned it off. That's interesting. Would we see that, though? Would we see a power on or power off event in the cell phone data? And one more thing, could it be put on airplane mode without us knowing about it in the cell phone data?
Yeah, I would say that you would see the power on and power off and the airplane mode on and off. I thought about that as well. And Emily just texted me and said, do not refer to them as the House defendants. They're called the Commonwealth witnesses now. That's their new definition in the motion to dismiss. So don't you dare call them the House defendants. Doesn't Commonwealth witnesses. How funny is that? Because there had to have been a meeting after everyone was making fun of the House defendants where the attorneys have to, fine, we'll define you as Commonwealth witnesses as opposed to House defendants.
Thanks,
it's
Emily,
a better
for that.
name, but it's funny.
Well, it depends on whose lawsuit you're looking at. And Karen Reed's lawsuits are the House defendants. In their counter, they're the Commonwealth witnesses, right?
Okay, I thought that they had once referred to themselves as the House defendants. That's interesting, though.
Oh, I don't think so.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Yeah, but either way, that is a funny switch up that they intentionally define themselves.
Of course they did. Of course they did. Oh my God.
And it's very misleading too, because it almost sounds like you're an agent of the state of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, but you can define them pretty much any way you want in that legal document.
But they are an agent of the state, right? I mean, you've got 2 law enforcement professionals. So aren't those guys agents of the state of the Commonwealth? I mean, theoretically.
Yeah, technically. But I'm just like, I think they lump everyone in, including the wives and.
Well, no, they do. But I mean, metaphorically and literally, I guess they are. This is where I have to say that this is where the groupthink and the relationships are so important to this case, especially in the first trial with Adam Lally running the show, because none of them see that it's their personal biases about police, about local police, about, the Canton Police Department, about the state police, the Boston. None of them see that their personal bias and tendency to give all of this credibility to this group of people was what ultimately swayed their opinion to not only such a degree of certainty that they immediately jumped on it must have been Karen Reed, but from like 12 o'clock noon that day, they got the word of Brian Albert with Jen McCabe and Matt McCabe, and that was it, right? Now, remember, at that moment, and we know this because Michael Proctor texts his sister, Jen McCabe says she knows you. Like, so immediately, even if he doesn't know, he knows who Brian Albert is, of course. And immediately, the relationship is close enough that it would be like showing up, for a homicide witness interview, and you see like one of your high school friends' boyfriends, and it's like, oh, I saw your ex-boyfriend. You cannot not be impacted by that. But these guys, I don't know if they're just not trained to understand that, if it's just their opinion were so heavily influenced by the authority of Brian Albert, because Yuri Buchanan, let's face it, and Michael Proctor, in the presence of Brian Albert, they're the low men on the totem pole, right? Like they're not the alphas, sorry guys, right? So of course they were going to just fall at the feet of Brian Albert and do whatever he says and whatever he wanted.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I don't really even fault Proctor or Yuri anymore,
Right.
besides from doing a bad investigation. But if they were being tricked by Brian Albert, Brian Higgins, and Chief Berkowitz into believing, intentionally tricked, that that taillight was there, then all of a sudden the case is pretty simple to them. And that's where you need someone that can have a more intelligent view of it once red flags come about, especially when you get down to the medical examiner who tells you that this probably didn't happen the way you're saying it is. Somebody has to, instead of fighting her, embrace her and figure out if we can contradict what she's saying with evidence, not with calling her a whack job. That's not the protocol we have to follow when we're dealing with someone's life. It's just not.
Yeah, right. And any other objective police opinion on this, somebody who's not from the town or not from the county or not from Boston, that's what they're telling you. Like, I remember Michael Easter, and I can't remember which interview, he says that one day he showed up to an investigation and he watched as it was some kind of a stakeout, and he watches as his sister walks out of the building. And he's like, oh my God, what is my sister doing? She just happened to be like at a person, I think it was like next door. She wasn't part of what they were observing, but he had to immediately let everybody know in all the reports that my sister just walked out of the building. You don't pretend like that didn't happen, because of course, what does that do? It makes it look like you're doing something nefarious or like you're trying to hide something, right?
Like, Michael, that's a whorehouse we're watching. Why is she walking out?
And it was like this was the town I think he lived in or grew up in at the time. So of course he was going to know people. And that's the point. By refusing to admit that you knew who Brian Albert was, refusing to admit that you had a relationship with the Alberts or the McCabe's or whatever, all you're doing is sort of making yourself look like you're more guilty because you're trying to hide what shouldn't have mattered, what should have been in the report from the start, very open and honest, but they, they knew it made them look like they were doing something wrong. And that's why they tried to hide it.
Yeah, and when I watched the investigation in the Adelson case, it makes me so upset. If we just had Special Agent Sanford, the FBI agent that was assigned to this case that saw it through from the beginning to end, who is obviously more open mind, he's working for the FBI, and even the quote-unquote yokel Tallahassee cops, they didn't just jump to a conclusion, and it took a long time to finally get there, but it's so refreshing to see an investigation that was not clouded by everyone jumping to the same conclusion and not challenging what we originally thought. And that confirmation bias is just so goddamn strong in all of us, and it really happened here. But I get torn because Proctor and Yuri were both getting fucked with by the chief of police in that county by throwing that taillight there. Because if that taillight never shows up there at all, this is a total different case. Completely. Right? Think about it. Like, there's no taillight there at all. You would think these guys would have the sense to at least question whether or not Karen hit him.
So the other thing, this came up, I think I was talking to Emily about this, because we both ended up back on the taillight just by happenstance. And I followed a piece that was allegedly found during the CERT team search. I just randomly selected it, right? I wasn't trying to prove anything. I was just like, all right, I'm going to follow this piece. And of course, just like anything else in this case, it turns out that, okay, but they're not on the up and up about whatever's going on here. I don't know whether it was actually hidden, behind the reconstruction that woman, Ashley Belair or whatever her name is, did. Maybe we couldn't see the diffuser, but I didn't see a diffuser in that depiction of the reconstruction. She very clearly made a point to pull out two pieces to say, oh, those two pieces weren't in this reconstruction. But doesn't mention the one that, of course, was found at the CERT team investigation. And here's the thing that I was saying. I was saying, is there a way that Bekenick and Proctor don't know about the taillight? The problem that I run into with them not having any knowledge of those taillight pieces, assuming they come from Karen's vehicle, which everybody seems to believe they do, then they're with that car. It would have been very difficult because we see them. They're staring at in the Sally port at the car at allegedly the time when it gets there, assuming that the time is correct. Again, we have to say that because we can't believe anything. However, there's video missing. So to me, it's like, okay, if you were going to just outright show us a different timestamp, why then cut out video parts, cut out 3 minutes, cut out an hour? Why not just show us the whole run through? So that's very shady. Then they show us video that is completely, you can't even make anything out of what we're looking at. But the next day we see the same camera, and of course it's perfect or it's fine. So there's just something so shady about that. But you've got all three of them sitting around that taillight. And I think it's funny that they elected to use the diffuser, because if you took a knife, right? Like, to me, the diffuser would be like one of the easier things to kind of like try to get out of that taillight, because I'm sure it's not easy to break a taillight, right?
Yeah.
So they would have had some place to start, but it couldn't have been easy to pull pieces off it.
Yeah. At some point, Chief Berkowitz has to snap a few pieces off initially behind those two dopes' backs, whether they stop the camera or not. There has to be. Now, if you think about protocol, and perhaps Karen's lawsuit will address this and make changes to have multiple cameras, not not motion detection, just real cameras, that will protect you as a cop. That's a normal, good, law-abiding cop. And I told Corey Hopkins this from the start, from the jump. I said, besides the fact that I think you're beautiful and I'm in love with you, that I am not anti-cop at all. But I will recognize that everyone has a different situation in life. So you may have a different opinion on cops, but not me. But if you can't tell the truth, if you can't protect yourself, and you can't be honest, and you can't admit when you're wrong, which we saw a lot of that on the stand, or you can't admit how you can do things better, then you're just stuck in this really obtuse world where this kind of shit happens. And the cops, Yuri Baconic and Proctor would have been protected had there been more cameras and they weren't involved, right? So his name would be clear. Yeah, you said your things, but I don't think you would even get terminated for that in a private, based upon the unions. But now everyone thinks you're involved, including myself. I was so certain it was Proctor. I didn't even know who Chief was. I didn't know from trial one because they didn't really bring him up that much.
No, that's the crazy part. Mm-hmm.
And the way Yuri Baconic and Proctor act, they're not acting like guilty people. I mean, if you're guilty, you shut the fuck up. You don't go on TV, and if you have his intelligence, you don't. And it doesn't seem like he would ever risk his entire career for this dopey case, because this is a huge thing. You're going to plant evidence. This is not something you take lightly as anybody, especially a cop. But if you have the relationship and someone comes to you early in the morning, look, I got attacked by someone. Yeah, I knocked him out and he hit the back of his head. I didn't intend to kill him, Chief. I'm in trouble here. What can we do? And then the chief snaps a few pieces off behind their back. He'll have the opportunity to do it. They're not always watching the back of that car.
I do not think that Chief Berkowitz did that. I can't do that. I can't. This is my problem. I do not believe that Brian Higgins told him the truth. And I do not believe that Chief Berkowitz knowingly would ever indict an innocent woman like this. He might have, however, if he believed Brian Higgins, because that was his friend, and we have a situation now where there's a dead Boston police officer, and you're protecting Brian Albert and your buddy Brian Higgins, now you're willing and able to break some taillight pieces off and throw them down.
Yeah, and you've convinced me that perhaps that is the case, where Higgins is not admitting to killing, but Higgins is somehow convincing Berkowitz that this is what we need to do, or Higgins is just lying like he does. Higgins has no problem lying. We see it all the time. He gets away with it on the stand, in theory. He got away with it, not knowing that every word would be scrutinized. And just let's take a time out for Sergio De Niro, who, my God, I don't know how this guy came on this earth with this skill, how he developed the skill of analyzing actual words. Initially, like, this is fucking bullshit. How could I mean something, right?
Oh,
and then,
it's
like,
so important.
And
Yeah,
it
go ahead.
does. And that's the beauty of humans, because we think we're so smart. We're all the same. We all exhibit the same exact type of personality. If you have a disorder, it's so obvious to everyone else but you. I didn't know any of this years ago. And it's so great that he really opened my mind to a lot of different tactics that can be employed when someone's lying to you and detecting someone being untruthful. So I just want to thank him
so
for
good
that.
at it.
Yeah, I don't even know who he is or where he comes from, how you even contact him. I have no idea. Do you?
Well, we figured that out. So, I mean, I know where you mean like where physically is he located in the
Yeah.
world? I have no idea. I don't know where he is physically. I mean, but he's brilliant at what he does. I mean, I've never seen anybody this good at it. And, he's just so good at it. He's able to really reconstruct. What makes Sergio so good at it is he's not just able to say, okay, this person is being deceptive, which clearly, at a certain level of awareness. And I think Veriscope is really good at that too. Like, when someone's being deceptive, but what he's able to do is take that language and then start to give you very serious clues about what may or likely happened instead. And now with this case, he's not, there's some challenges and there's some times where he's just absolutely guessing and he's not right about what happened instead. But for example, he was able to use language before anyone saw or caught the Higgins waterfall incident. He was absolutely sure that some kind of altercation took place at the waterfall.
Yeah, that was
Absolutely
amazing.
sure. It was amazing.
Amazing. And he also has the life experience because when he said, have you ever flirted with someone? The eye contact, and you probably can relate in your life. When you liked someone, you can remember looking in their eyes. You don't have to say a goddamn fucking word. Even if you're keeping something secret. Even more important, that eye contact is so critical. And then a lot of guys that may be nerdy don't have that experience of even being with a girl. He has that life experience, which makes it a lot better. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I hope he would come on our show. I don't know.
Yeah, he's so great.
Just how
I think
to get into contact with him.
we're gonna have to figure it out. Lola, the good dog, 26, sends 199, says Turtle Boy did that test and it did not show his stairs. I'm not surprised to hear that. I had that. I'm so glad you said that. I had that question in my head as I was talking about it a minute ago. And one of the challenges with Turtle Boy on this case, whenever I go back to try to find earlier videos, it is so challenging because there's so many. So you have to be able to search certain words. And sometimes I can find the videos and other times I can't. So I will definitely go back and try to look for that video because I'd be very curious to see how he did that experiment. Did he do it where he took the phone in his hand, was holding it? Did he have it on the dash? I think now that I said that, I may have seen a clip of that video where it was on the dash. But we have to go back and look.
Even easier, Emily, just get an iPhone 12 today and drive from the waterfall to 34 Fairview and have someone record you. Have your kid record you while you're holding it and just let us know the results. One time I asked her and she did it. No, she
did. You?
Can you, I swear to God, can you trespass on the people across the street's lawn? Because I wanted a picture of straight on like they use in the hearing, but I wanted the real picture and she did it. And she got lucky driving by. I mean, how amazing was that video? I don't know if you saw it, but he has his little sweeper now, and Lucky's driving by 34 Fairview while Emily's doing the surveillance. And
I didn't know that was actually him. I saw that, but I thought it was like a joke.
No, it was really him, and those type of things motivate me sometimes.
That's so
and then
crazy.
and just one last, the motivation I get when I think about how Lally was in trial one, which I love. I love Lally, Adam Lally. I want to get him on the show if he'll come on. But the fact that they went out and hired someone who they thought was such a great trial attorney to try and convict somebody is absolutely insane. It's outrageous how bad they wanted just to get a conviction as opposed to getting the truth, which is not your job as a prosecutor. So that bothered me this weekend as I was thinking about how great Adam Lally is. Well,
and Morrissey and how. So I've also come to the conclusion that Morrissey is just a moron. Like he's not a lawyer, did not know the law. He's trusting the people in that office to tell him the truth. And that came to me because of his response to the Sandra Birchmore situation. He really didn't know that there was this whole world of us that were uncovering Matthew Farwell going up in the elevator, hiding in his COVID mask just before she's found. I mean, that was insane on that video, but that was all out there in the world before the feds got involved, long before. And so he's just hearing about it, when the feds get involved. It's how do you not know about that? So to me, this guy's a puppet. He's got no clue what's actually going on in that office. Yes, maybe certain decisions have to be run by him, but he trusts Brian Tully. He trusts the DAs that work under him. And he made a very critical mistake by not actually knowing the evidence. When he goes on and speaks about the evidence, I can't believe that he knew what he was saying was false. I think it's very possible that some of what he announces there, like the cell phone stuff, he knew about the relationships between Proctor, and he knew there were relationships that were not on the up and up. But the other pieces about that you pointed out about, oh, the cell phone evidence shows that John never went in the house, all that. I don't know that he knew the specifics of the cell phone stuff when he makes those announcements. I think some of that he actually believed, or at least
I agree.
Didn't know enough to disagree.
If he's a puppet, can you imagine how strong you got to be the puppeteers for that big boy?
It's a great point, right? Or how much money you had to donate? I don't know.
You need a crane or something to hold those strings up.
At Holly Johnson, dash VD6LV sends another $4.99, says, I believe Higgy went to the station to get a Faraday bag. So you believe that he went to the station, like we see, and then he goes back to the house, essentially, right?
What's a Faraday bag?
Faraday bag is what cops will put a cell phone into to keep anybody from being able to like remotely mess with it, I guess, to try to keep it from being tampered with in any way, shape, or form remotely. I think it's like the airplane mode, but it's more secure.
Did you ever have your phone in those stupid bags for a comedy show?
No.
Yeah, so when we went to see Bill Burr at Madison Square Garden, they made us put the phone in this bag, and it locks, but it used magnets, and it's like you can't get it off. But the cool thing is, on YouTube, and all the kids have it for their high schools, I figured out that if you buy these two type of reverse magnets, you can put it on the bag and open it up. Yeah, so that's what we were able to do. I literally bought magnets from Amazon just for this particular concert. I'm not sitting through this concert without having my phone, which is annoying.
That's so funny. Wait a minute. So my daughter uses that bag at school, like all the kids you said at high school. So she has to put her phone in that bag. But I didn't realize there's a way to, undo it.
Yeah, my son said that they don't lock the ones, I don't believe, at the school. I could be wrong, but they just have to be in there. They do have ones that do lock. That's what I had. That's the video. I was watching all these 10-year-olds figuring out how to do it, and it took me a while because we were in a suite at the concert, and everyone in there was like, "Oh, what are you doing?" But then as soon as you get open, everyone wants to do the same thing.
That's so funny. At Abacus Flincho, 5 cents, $5 says, follow up on that theory. I forgot about Faraday bags. Brian Albert and Brian Higgins should have had them or be aware of them. That would turn off the phone. Oh, right. So that's another point, right? If the phone, rather than actually turning the phone off, just throwing it in the bag, could just block all signals and would not necessarily show up on the phone, right? You wouldn't be able to see it on and off.
John just laying there with the phone in his back pocket. Apparently that's where he kept it. Wherever they were stashing the body, which is probably somewhere out of view, and you don't really need to do much so long as he's not walking. It doesn't seem like it's going to register steps, and you don't have to make it so complicated. Again, you could be right, but I'm looking for the more simple answer, at least a plausible explanation.
I would agree with you. I think it's very possible that they just didn't move the phone until he gets discovered. I mean, to me, there's enough activity and enough question marks around that phone that I could see that somebody starts moving the phone, somehow gets the phone to John in front of 34 Fairview after the fact, I guess is the best way to say it.
Yeah, and I'm still not on that. I know you guys were all at the beginning thought that he was getting beat to death in the basement, so you would need to have some way to get the phone back out there because there is no movement. I really think the phone's in his back pocket when he's attacked. That would make somewhat sense. Or they put it there, and then when you carry his body to the front, it's not going to register. That's my theory right now.
Yeah, makes sense. I don't know that. I don't know if I ever thought that John was beat to death. I think from the very beginning, I can't remember going back now because I'm so aware of the fall and the coup contra coup. I think at the very beginning, and even listening to the first group of medical examiners, there was an awareness that a fall or the gash at the back of his head was what killed him.
Okay.
So I think the idea was possibly a fall. Possibly he could have been hit with a very blunt object, and that was uncertain. Now we know that it seems everybody's in agreement that it was a fall, and that the coup contra coup injury is what gave him the black eyes. I just know that there was a exchange of punches, but I don't know that there was a like Mike Tyson beating of any kind. To me, the only reason I even believe that largely is because of the cuts and the bruises on John's hands. To me, there's no other explanation for the bruises. So, Proctor got waffled, sends $1. I love that. Proctor got waffled. We didn't talk about that yet, but did you see or hear Emily C's reading of the Brian Tully Internal Affairs report?
Yes.
Very interesting that they were concerned. And it does appear as though they were concerned that he was going to, quote, off himself. Let me be clear, that is not language that I would ever use for any reason, but that is language that that the Massachusetts State Police has no problem using about each other.
I missed that part. So they're saying that
that
they were concerned that Proctor would?
Yes. Yep. So essentially, the whole thing is about whether or not the internal affairs investigation was based on the performance review that Brian Tully and Yuri Buchanan give Michael Proctor in like August or something of 2024. Late, very late, after all of this, after the text messages and the first trial, the whole thing. It's like glowing, outstanding reviews. And so somebody flags that and says, this is just not right, right? So there's an investigation. And one of the things that comes up is Fanning, when Fanning is asked about this. Now, remember, Fanning is on some of these text messages with Michael Proctor, but for some reason in this report, Fanning is not asked about that directly. It's like the investigator forgot or didn't know that he was on it.
Right, I remember that.
So at one point, though, at the very end of Fanning's interview, the investigator is saying, when you guys went over to Michael Proctor's house after the federal grand jury testimony, was he reprimanded by Brian Tully? Now, Brian Tully kind of lies about this and sort of tries to dance around it, make it sound like, yeah, he mentioned it or he was stern about it. But then Fanning outs that the only reason that they go over there is because they were so worried about his mental health. Apparently, Proctor thinks he's going to the grand jury to talk about the investigation, like formally, right? Like as a cop. But then he gets there and the first question is about his text with his mom and his sister. And so then he was not there for an hour and a half. He was there for 6.5 hours and was pounded. So when he leaves, they're concerned about his mental health, and the language that Fanning uses is, we were worried that this guy was going to off himself.
Yeah, and I can understand that, Sam, because it was his whole life. If you think about your career and your license, if you have a license and what you do, it's devastating. And sure, I would understand that. I mean, his report doesn't mean much when someone's about to kill themselves, and we could say that on YouTube when we're in this context of the reality of what you're saying. It's not like we're asking him to do it. So yeah, it's devastating. He was devastated, which 100%. Makes me more, and I believe him, and it makes me more on the side of, yeah, he was with confirmation about his bad investigation, but not intentionally planting something. Because if you're doing something nefarious, you know that you can get caught. You're not going to be shocked if you do, because you did it. You know that there's a chance this could happen. He seemed to be completely blindsided by this entire thing. I didn't
there's
recognize
two things.
That fact.
So a couple of things, though, about that. So you just made a little bit of a leap. So, and I'll explain why. Because, yes, I agree with you up to a point. Michael Proctor's whole identity was that he's a cop. He was devastated by this, absolutely devastated. One would think that at that point, you would begin to point the finger. You'd either do one of two things. Look at your behavior and go, you know, man, maybe I did something wrong, because this is pretty egregious punishment, right? Or that you would look at the other people who did not get punished as severely or even close to as severely. And you would say, why am I being singled out? That's not fair. And you would want to then, make sure everybody else understands that they had a much bigger or larger role in all of this. But it's obvious that Michael Proctor is never going to do either. Number one, the reason why you would not see in Proctor's mind, first of all, you got to remember, these guys all think the same way. So they are just sitting around, like you saw it with the DeChico texts about the medical examiner. There was no consideration about what the medical examiner was saying. They had already decided, they were so strong in their decision that Karen Reed was guilty so fast that they were 100% convinced she's a whack job. She's a nutbag, like the chief would say, right? And Michael Proctor is so convinced that he's in the right based on the fact that everybody around him is reinforcing that. You're right. Medical examiner's a nutbag, just like the chief would say, chief of police, by the way. So like they're so indoctrinated into this culture that for Michael Proctor to think anything different would be going up against everybody else. He'd be going to war with the people who he so much wants to be accepted and liked and, admired by, right? He was wearing this investigation like a badge of honor until he got slammed by the feds, because the feds are objective. They come in without that groupthink, without that local mentality, without understanding who Brian Albert is or Brian Higgins is or any of these people, the DA, Morrissey, any of this. And they're like, what the hell is going on here? And that's the reason to me why a grand jury wouldn't have indicted Proctor or any of those Massachusetts State Police, is because they were operating from a place of entitlement. They all believed that what they were doing was right. They believed that Karen Reed was guilty. They believed that the defense was spinning narratives, that Turtle Boy was, crazy and he needed to be put in jail because what he's doing is irresponsible. So that's different. Like when you're throwing down a few taillight pieces in that mentality, you're doing it for the right reason. So it doesn't feel like you're trying to convict an innocent woman. It feels like, and everybody else is supporting you, that you did the right thing because she has to go to jail to protect not only all of us, but the murder of a Boston cop.
Yeah. And I always wonder how hated I would be if I was a cop, because I do like to press buttons just intentionally. But also, if you're doing this job right, you really should be questioning yourself, because you want your case to hold up in court. These guys don't care. That's what it's like. The FBI cares. They win at their huge rate because they care. And if they win or lose a case in state court, it doesn't matter. Lally goes on to the next case. He does not care. He just,
which you can see.
Yeah. That's what I love about him. I wish I had that mentality where you just don't care and you can just do your job and that's it. I just don't have it in me. Yeah, I agree.
It's so funny. What did you just say? I was going to mention something else that you said that was important. It'll come back to me. G.I. Josie Lou sends $49.99.
Wow,
Holy crap. Thank you so much, G.I. Josie. You guys need to contact Lana from Truth and Transparency. Data was audited. John died at 12/25/52. Anything else that happened after was manipulated by others. Karen didn't have access to the Faraday bag. Karen didn't have access to a Faraday bag. Leo's did, and OJ owes self for 5 hours and 33 minutes. Okay, so let's go back here. Data was audited. I don't know what that means, but I would love to know. So I'm definitely interested. Data was audited. John died at 12/25/52.
Well, look, she paid us $50, so we have to agree with her for that. So let's say it's 12/25/52.
Yeah.
I had a theory initially that the 12:32 movement, which is the last movement, was potentially not John moving. His phone is open with Face ID. That could potentially be someone holding up the phone to his face. So if you're claiming that he is dead at 12:25/52, it's plausible because we know that he reads the text from Brian Higgins, you coming here with 3 question marks, at 12:25:09. 12:25:09. He could have been attacked straight away. That was my initial theory. I'm not sure one way or another if that's true or not. But if he was dead at 12:25:52, then that secondary movement at 12:32 has to be artificial, someone else moving him.
Okay. And then John O'Keefe's cell. So there was, wait, what is this part now? Karen didn't have access to the Faraday bag. Okay. Another word. And then LEOs had John's phone for 5 hours and 33 minutes. How would we know that that they had the phone? I don't understand that last part. Do you understand that last part?
No. But for $100, if you say Karen's guilty, I'll believe you too.
Please stop. Thank you so much, G.I. Josie Lou. Yes,
Yeah,
I
thank you.
started. So
appreciate
I am familiar with Lana. I loved their reading of Lindsay Gattani's self leaked grand jury testimony. It was such a, whether you care about any of that or not, it was a great reading. The actual reading was fantastic. It definitely felt like Lindsay Gattani was, being sort of like you could feel her embodied in the reading. It was fantastic. Should I play this?
Yeah, did we answer everything before we go on? Because sometimes people are asking questions about what we're talking about now, and then
no, let's do that. We did not.
Yeah.
At Mistaji 70 cents, $10. Who do you think is the weak link, the first to crack? Great question.
To me, the only two people that are linked are Brian Albert and Brian Higgins, and no one's heard from Chief Berkowitz. So those two would have to go against each other. Have you ever heard of the prisoner's theory in economics? Prisoner's dilemma?
I think so. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what like verbatim, but basically every two prisoners have a dilemma. You commit a crime together. If you both stay quiet, the probability of you not having any crime enforced against you is high. But if one of you breaks and admits to it, then you can get off completely and the other person gets convicted. So that's the dilemma you have when you're dealing with just two people, is are one of you going to admit to it, or are both of you going to remain silent? Now, I believe that we're not necessarily in that situation. I believe that Brian Albert thinks that he's innocent because Brian Higgins is the one that actually attacked John O'Keefe. And that's the only person I say each day that it was Brian Higgins that attacked John O'Keefe, not anybody else initially. Now, I believe there is culpability for Brian Albert legally for what occurred after, obviously. But I don't make that representation. So I think in Brian Albert's mind, he's seasoned enough to represent to the public as to what occurred. Notice how we don't hear from Higgins at all. You didn't even see Higgins anywhere, and there's a big reason for it. And if I was representing Higgins, I wouldn't let him talk anywhere. In a civil case, I would never let him testify, but I feel like he's going to convince whatever attorney he has that he can still talk his way out of this.
Yeah, but why wouldn't he? He already has testified. So why wouldn't she testify in a civil case? It just makes him look worse, right?
I know it does, but you have an obligation to your client. And if you objectively look at these facts and you say you cannot speak because of what you did, and it's very critical now. We're not talking about money. That's the only thing that's going to happen in the civil case is just money judgments. There's nothing else that can happen. But if you put yourself on the record with regard to a situation, then they can use it against you at a potential trial. But I get what you're saying. It looks bad that you're doing it, but you have the right to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know why he wouldn't, though, because he's already testified. It's a script.
I agree.
He's going to, right? Because he, Higgins is a real problem. I do think, though, I'll tell you what, Higgins is so much more sensitive. He is so much more weak. He is so much more likely to crack than Brian Albert. Brian Albert is so stoic. No chance he's ever going to open his mouth. And he's got everybody around him scared of him. You saw the way. I mean, I don't know if you saw my most recent video. No, wait, you didn't, because I don't think I released it yet.
Oh.
So you didn't see that one. But a video that I don't know. No, maybe I did release. Did I release the video that has... Yes, I released the video.
I watch all your videos.
Went back. So I just went back. This just came out. I went back and went and showed the highlights from the House defendants or Commonwealth witnesses when they went on ABC after the verdict, and they're asked questions by Matt Gutman, and you see how everybody looks to Brian Albert before they open their mouth. You can see that Jennifer McCabe is terrified of him. You can see that these people are taking everything they say as being filtered and okayed by Brian Albert, hands down. There's no doubt in my mind. Like, that's the kind of power he has. To me, nobody's going to crack. Not
Why
unless
wasn't Higgins there?
Because he's not a part of their family.
Is that it? Just, or is there a deeper reason why Higgins is not on TV proclaiming his innocence?
Because he can't do it. He's a weaker link. And I think if I'm Brian Albert, I would know that. You saw his testimony.
I know, but he thinks it was great, Higgins. He literally thinks that was great testimony. We wouldn't be, if he wasn't so bad, I wouldn't be here.
Right.
I wouldn't even care that much. But just such a beautiful way to fail when you're testifying. And I'm just speaking from a technical standpoint. All the questions that he answers that could be answered with a yes or no with his stories is just so bad. And then, of course, the whole story that we're dealing with.
It's so bad. It's the worst. It is definitive, like, evidence of his guilt. And it's challenging because he feels so guilty. I mean, one of the things that makes him so obviously guilty is the fact that he feels so guilty. He can't even talk about John's nephew without crying. Well, I understand this is a sad situation. And, I actually found news clips of them. I had never seen that before. It was the first time I'd ever seen the kids. Yeah.
It must have been your video that I saw, right? Because I've never seen him before. Yeah. Outside of the church.
Yeah, during the funeral. Yes. I had never seen that.
Do you go to church?
No. No, my mom's Jewish. No.
Oh, I didn't know you're a pizza bagel?
Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm,
half
definitely.
Jew, half Italian, huh? So are my kids. That's interesting.
Oh, yeah, very much so. So, no. But I mean, I have been to churches and have been to temples and but
the kids we're talking about and
I mean, it was sad.
Oh, well, he breaks down. Yeah. What is it psychologically?
He breaks down, but if you saw them coming out, like I watched them coming out, and it was sad, right? It was sad. It was sad to see the kids. The son is hysterical. I don't know if you've noticed that, but the kids. Yeah. So when they're walking out of the funeral, the son is hysterical. The nephew is hysterical. He's hysterical, and it was sad, but I didn't cry, right? And so if I knew him and was playing video games with him, I would be really sad. I might tear up, but I'm not going to cry on the witness stand during the most important testimony of my entire life over the fact that I played video games with John O'Keefe's nephew, unless I feel responsible for his death.
That's a great point, because I was going to say unless you had some relatable loss that he has, but you were making the better point, unless you had something to do with causing that kid to be upset. And Higgins, I'm telling you, you have an out if you come and say that it was self-defense or that it was a fight. But if the longer you drag this on, the more we're going to get into the fact that perhaps it was somewhat premeditated.
Well, that's the reason why. So that's the problem that I had for a long time. For a long time, I said, this is why psychologically I kept wanting to bring Colin in, because to me, I couldn't understand why these two trained, respected professionals wouldn't just so obviously say, we got into a fight, he swung first, and it was, non-intentional, self-defense. With witnesses, with one or the other as a witness, they would have walked away without a doubt. Without a doubt. There wouldn't even be a conversation. We probably wouldn't even know about it. But then I thought about it and I realized, why would we do that if we can use our big reputations to just walk away from this and say he never came in the house. Everyone's going to believe us because we own this town and because our reputations precede us. So the chief of police is one of our best friends. And going back and looking at Brian Tully's testimony, which I'm going to release, but I did this whole analysis of that, I will tell you that Brian Tully defers to the chief of police. Chief Berkowitz was a critical figure in this. They were not recused. He was really calling the shots. They were deferring to him. Even the Massachusetts State Police were deferring to him. And it makes me wonder if that's the reason why they didn't decide to take the case right away. If they didn't take the case right away because the Canton cops, because of Chief Berkowitz, wanted to be the first on the scene, wanted the Massachusetts State Police to stay away because it was Brian Albert's house, right? Now, remember, Kevin Albert is the brother. Kevin Albert's at the Minion meeting. He's at that house right after John O'Keefe is taken away in an ambulance. He's then on the phone with Brian Albert because we have his phone records now throughout the day. So Kevin Albert is huge in all of this. he's joyriding with Proctor, and no one's ever going to convince me that they were working on a cold case. You're never going to convince me of that. They were working on this case. I have absolutely no doubt. And by the way, they were out in Brian Higgins' town. Come on, seriously, on the Cape. So
what was the name of that town again?
Sandwich.
I love that big boy. It lives in the town of Sandwich.
Sandwich,
And they were definitely working on a cold case. It just depends on which type of case, what cold case they were working on. Bud Light, Miller Lite, the typical jokes. But now I feel bad making all those Jewish jokes. I didn't know you were half Jewish, but I'm allowed to, right? Because my wife and kids are Jewish.
Well, that's fine. Yeah, I never.
Because I'm privately. Because I said to you, a Jewish cop as a joke. Have you ever seen the movie Airplane where he brings? They ask for a pamphlet of famous Jewish athletes, and it's a little pamphlet, because not many.
There's not very many.
Koufax. So sorry for all that.
No, I
have Jewish joke immunity anyway, so
I didn't even register. At SLWGF sends $9.99. Thank you so much.
Thank you very
much. So
much.
Appreciate your support. Ms. Parks in the house sends $50. Whoa, love the Monday clap, guys. Wasn't there some speculation that Brian Higgins went back to the CPD for a Faraday bag for John O'Keefe's phone? He left there with something. Also, not House defendants now. Do they think that makes them sound less guilty? Yes, they do. Actually, that's exactly what they think. This is all Brian Albert. Brian Albert is the testify guy. He's the one who's behind everything any of these people say. Because like you pointed out already, Brian Higgins is just like relegated to the back. He's like sitting in his fortress waiting for Turtle Boy to, drive down the cul-de-sac so that he can, run after him. Would it surprise you if he doesn't have an arsenal of guns like right by the front door? Because he's so paranoid about anybody coming to his property. I still can't get over the fact that he saw. What are the odds that you are in your house and Aidan Carney and his girlfriend, not in his car, but in her car, are driving past your house and you see them and are running after them?
It is absolutely phenomenal. And of course, when I had to stage the event, someone came up with the idea to hire a rhinoceros to play Higgy Bear. And then after we do all that filming, Cosgrove, or the DA that's assigned to this case, claimed that we were using AI to trick people with the rhinoceros chasing the Mercedes that was gray. And
really?
Yeah. You didn't know that our case, we actually made case law with that video because somehow it was cited. Yeah, they cited our channel's case that they were claiming it was AI, that it was an AI rhinoceros wearing a hoodie that had the same one as Higgins, the Harley Davidson hoodie, chasing after the Mercedes. Yeah, it's cited in one of Turtle Boy's cases.
That's insane. I did not know that. Yeah, that is hilarious.
We did a video on it too. We did a video on the fact that our rhinoceros made some form of case law.
That is so funny. Oh my God. It was a great video. I mean, it was one of the classics, right? Because
it's funny.
It's funny. It was so funny. But it's also so funny because what are the fucking odds? What is he sitting outside waiting for him?
That's the question. Is he waiting for the feds to come, someone to arrest him, or is he just completely paranoid now?
Well, I think they all are. I mean, this is another thing I know you hate. You don't like the Colin thing. But it's another part of the problem. You showed that video so that's an interesting story. I don't think you talked about the story that led to the interview that was released, the unredacted interview where Colin and his dad are at the police station and they're talking about Colin being followed, right? So all of that happens because there's a guy, I forget exactly who he is, but he's standing in town. And he just happens to see Colin. Colin has a very conspicuous, yellow Jeep. It's yellow, right? It's a big Jeep Wrangler and it's yellow. I mean, you can't possibly miss the Jeep, right?
I thought it was gray for some reason in the video. I did a video, Sam, initially as to what occurred. So the guy's videoing D&E Pizza and as a auditor for YouTube, which I love those guys. And then Colin flips out about it. So yeah, you can argue that he's paranoid because he's guilty, or he's paranoid because he's traumatized as a 17-year-old that was accused of murder he didn't do. It's both ways.
Yeah, but
did you ever get arrested in your life?
Almost. I never got arrested, but
I did for throwing a bottle out a window in college. And then after, for the next like 3 or 4 years, I would get panic attacks if I saw a police car. Not that I did anything wrong, but it does affect you.
Yeah, but Colin was not arrested. Colin was not arrested.
It's
Colin
sort of worse.
is in bed with the police in his town.
I don't know. They didn't seem to give him that much respect when he was there making this complaint.
Colin was literally wrote out of the report because Michael Proctor didn't want Colin to even be discussed at the scene, right? That's where they made a terrible mistake, by the way. Like, just put the kid at the goddamn scene. Who cares?
Right. Well,
right? Like, when you try to hide it, it makes it all worse.
If you believe that they tried to hide it, remember they were being told that he was the one who actually attacked John initially, and then you got to put him there. And how great would it be to find Colin was there when initially they didn't write him in there? And I agree, they should have just wrote him in there. That he left. Let's say even if he left at 12:10, like the data indicates, it would have been fine. I see why they didn't put him in there, but I also see why it caused a huge issue for him after the fact. Because now, but this goes back to why you get mad privately and why Emily's mad privately that Karen was not screaming bloody murder that day that Brian Higgins was in that house. No one was talking about Higgins. You go to the HBO and Terry, and thank God Terry had all that footage of them. They're not talking at all about Higgins. They're not. It comes to them, well, like this is their big, well is part of it. Totally. But you have to know what's going on beforehand and what led up to this. And then you focus your entire case on that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would say anger. I would say confusion, right? I just don't understand. I know and I get everybody's going to say, well, they were misled. They were told that it was the nephew and the homeowner. But you had an interaction the night before at the bar where you're flirting with Brian Higgins. You're literally shoulder to shoulder with him. You don't even look at him. Okay, fine. John, you say 10 days earlier, you're talking about how John is asking you questions about, what's going on with you and Higgins? What are you hooking up with him? Jesus, right? It's okay. Now you guys are back in the bar. You're not even looking at him. You're not talking to him. Even if Karen never saw, which I don't believe she did, saw Higgins pointing at John, even if she never knew about the text messages, because it doesn't even look like he read that text message until after he's out of the car. So even if she knows nothing about any of that, how do you not see John? And after the fact, I get that morning because of who Karen is. I understand why she didn't I would have immediately saw him and been like, he was in a fight and he was beat up by Brian Higgins. I understand that she didn't. Okay, fine. But then after the fact, after he doesn't respond to the John died text, how do you not go, this has to have been Brian Higgins doing?
If she did, the case would have been completely different. And you see throughout that entire first trial, through Terry's documentary, she's really downplaying it. And then we saw the text last week where she's downplaying the fact that they're 50 pages worth. This has to be a reason she did it to protect herself, maybe. She thought that she was going to look bad. Type A girls like her that come in as clients, they're very hard to break for trial and for testifying, but you have to break them. When I say break them, you don't have to be perfect here, because when you try and hide one thing, everyone detects it. The jurors detect it, you detect it, you get angry. That's why you get angry at Jen McCabe when she's lying, when we know she's lying. And you cannot be perfect here. And that's where somehow I don't blame Karen, because I understand she didn't want to do it. You said in your video, here's my phone. All right, there may be 12 naked pictures of me, but here's my phone because we're dealing with murder, right? That's what a rational person would think, but that's not what she did. And even Turtle Boy didn't know. And he was the one that was starting all this. He had no idea. So yeah, of course he's going to attack. And how great is it for you in that community at the time when you find out little Colin was in the house? Now, all of a sudden, this must be a huge conspiracy. Right. So, like, it blows everything up. Meanwhile, she's allowing Higgins really to go free in this time. I'm not blaming her for this. She had nothing to do with the death in theory. But after the fact is where we really needed to flush out what occurred, and we just weren't getting it from her.
Right. And you would think because you're being accused of murder that you would want to explore that. I think she didn't because the Commonwealth was trying to use it, she thought, against them by saying this is her motive for wanting to hurt John.
Yeah.
Right. So I think she was defended around it because of that. She was like, oh God, they're going to use it against me as a motive, even though she had 52 voicemails or however many phone calls that very clearly indicate that's not what happened. And even the first jury knew that it wasn't maliciously intended, right? Like they were like, yeah, we believe she hit him, but we know she didn't do it on purpose. So there was never anybody, any juror anywhere who said, oh, Karen Reed intentionally tried to kill John. That was absurd. So using that for motive was absurd, but it's so much more powerful if you're on the other side looking at it going, well, this gives Brian Higgins a motive, right?
Right.
So I don't understand how you wouldn't have used it unless you don't believe it. Unless you don't believe that he had that he would have hurt him.
I don't think she did because he never did. And she did not see Higgins yelling at him as they left that bar. If she did, and if they even saw that on the video, which they had to miss it, there's no way as an attorney you would have gone through that first trial and not question someone who's being held back and taunting John O'Keefe, right?
No, they
missed and who happens to
it,
be at the house, right? Like they missed it. And however you want to say it, they missed it, unfortunately. But that's what we're dealing with. You know, yeah, it happens. It happens, but they did miss it. You wouldn't
but
question.
They missed it, though. To your point, though, Ben, they missed it because she was downplaying it.
Exactly. Because we would follow Higgins. If you told us that Higgins had a motive, we'd follow his ass. That's why I want the whole video, Sam. You know, we're just getting clips of it. The stuff that we find is when nothing's really going on. But you pointed out perfectly, Brian Higgins is like this.
Yeah.
In walks Karen Reed. And this is the power of vagina. Your whole body changes. Everything changes.
He's loud. He's talking. Oh, yeah.
And it is so
joking,
crazy.
He's pointing.
And like after Sergio and you through Sergio told me to look at Karen, and look, she pulls people. And what does Higgins do? He starts to kick Brian Albert in a playful manner right after she does that. It's like, but we didn't follow him. I say we in the first trial, proverbial we didn't follow Higgy at the end. We were looking at Karen and John looking for some contention.
Right.
That's scary. It's scary that it was there. And we're asking Chris Albert about a cartoon when he pulled Higgins' arm. That's what we want to ask Chris. Like, what are you doing right there? Now, he may have a different reason. I looked at him like there could be another reason, but clearly you see something. You show him the video. You see he has to be yelling at, what do you think he's doing, Chris? And now this is where Chris has got to be honest, right? Like, if you say he's a good guy, then be a good guy now because it all will be flushed out. It is going to be flushed out through all the depositions and everything that comes after this. So you might as well just be the good guy. I think Chris Albert is a good guy. I know he has a checker pass, but I agree. I don't think he's like this horrible person. He was He was the friend of John. He was the friend.
He was
not
the friend.
Brian Higgins. He was the friend. He's the one who invited him there.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure he feels guilty for that, by the way. Because, I mean, how do you not, right? How do you not? Even if you had nothing to do with the fact that he's not here anymore, you're the guy that got him to the waterfall, right? How do you not have some feeling of like regret about the fact that he ended up there because you invited him there, even if it's not rational?
He had no clue that Brian Higgins was so in love with Karen. He had no clue that they were texting and sexting for the last 10 days. No one knew except for Higgins and Karen.
Yeah. My guess is if I'm reading that arm motion by Chris, and I'm just as a cold read, right? If I'm just reading the facial expression, the grab, to me, it's like, what are you doing? It's actually like a question. He's actually asking, like, what is going on here, instead of like with full knowledge of what he's doing and why. So it's like he caught something and was inquiring about it. Like, you're not starting shit, are you? Something like that. 100%.
I mean, we know that there's only 20 seconds where Higgy snaps, and he's grabbing him in that particular time, because right after that he's taunting he's talking John at the bar. He's taunting him. There's no one else there. This is the guy who now all his attention is on. And we know that, 25 minutes later, he's going to be texting him. You coming here. Not are you coming here, Brian Higgins. You coming here with 3 question marks. It's a big difference.
Those are important question marks, right? And
Marks.
if you watch John's reaction, which I've done a million times, right? Some people think that the feet is like a fight dance gesture. Some people don't, whichever, right? You're very convinced. And lots of other people have told me that too. But he also looks to, is it Nick Kolaki? He looks to somebody. So where would that be? He looks immediately. He says something back, does the little dance or drinks a beer, but he also looks to somebody to see, did anybody else see that? Right. So it was significant enough for him to go like, does anybody else just see what he did?
Yeah, because at that point, it's got to be fucking confusing as fuck to John. John doesn't know about their sexting. He has no idea. Right. He came in subservient, hugging Brian Higgins. And then within seconds, it's complete. And I didn't realize this, but John's a fighter. You could see he wasn't backing down from him. And I thought he would. I just don't know who he is. I never thought an Irish guy that's drinking would be violent in my life. I've never seen that before.
Cute.
But even Karen makes the point that he does get violent or could be when he's drinking, in theory. But this wasn't John's fault. John was being so nice to all of them. He offered to buy them drinks. Higgins doesn't offer to buy anyone drinks, just sitting there and doing his thing once Karen walks in. And it must
like a little girl gossiping with his friend.
Yes. And it must have been confusing as fuck to John. How did this guy just flip? He had no idea that he was in love with Karen. No idea.
No, he doesn't understand it. Right. He doesn't understand it. But it is still confusing. I think, it helps me for those that are not as aware with like the Boston Irish white guy thing. I mean, that is a real thing. It's a very, very real thing. And this town is loaded with that real thing. And it is a very real thing. So that's just an important thing to mention. Like the culture of this community is an important thing to mention because it's part of the reason why, there was so much reinforcement that despite the evidence, like not everybody, people are like, oh, there's got to be 100,000 people in a conspiracy. Absolutely not. At this moment, the only people that I believe knew that John was murdered by somebody in the house are Brian Higgins and Brian Albert and their family and the people in their inner circle. I do not believe at this moment that any of those police officers knowingly tried to place the blame on an innocent woman. They should have known. They had information to the contrary. They caught this group in lots of different lies. Adam Lally catches them in lies. Brian Tully catches them in lies. They should have known better, but they were so convinced that, they must have a different reason for lying. It's not. They got rid of their phones because, it's unfair that they should even be, their phones shouldn't be taken. Judge Canoni said that they shouldn't even have, it's a fishing expedition. Like it's just groupthink. It's a culture of people that very much didn't want to believe that any of their folks are responsible for the death of a police officer. To me, it's like that simple. And then with the taillight, it's entitlement. It's like cops, when they're entitled, we're talking about, you can never forget this. We're talking about the death of a Boston police officer, and we're talking about protecting other police officers. And as the case went on, we're talking about protecting each other because, and you see this with Michael Proctor in a huge way, it got personal. Once the defense started retaliating and then Turtle Boy got involved, it was personal. Turtle Boy's putting out stories about Michael Proctor having relationships with the Alberts. They were furious at Turtle Boy. They wanted him to be shut down, to shut this whole thing, because they're being exposed, but they're being exposed for personal stuff. And they think that's very like unjust and unfair. And his phone should never have been looked at by the feds because those are my personal text messages. Like they still, to this very day, do not think that was fair. Michael Proctor still right now does not think he did anything wrong, which is unimaginable, but he really doesn't think he did anything wrong. at least nothing he's going to admit to, like planting evidence.
Right. And you bring up a great point with regard to the localness that some people have. This was their time to be exposed, meaning you and I are exposed right now. People can say things about us. How we react is a huge deal. And I see it a lot with a lot of people that do this. But you think about what you just said is that they're not really upset about being exposed to something nefarious. They're upset about the fact that he went to a wedding and the pictures out there. You have to embrace that. That's the attitude you have to have if you want to make it in this industry. Your dad knows that. You cannot react to every single little thing. You can't go suing everyone that strikes your child. You cannot do it. And I'm actually seeing it with Yannetti too. Someone sent me a post that he did on Twitter, I think, where he's sort of clapping back at other people. It's not worth it. If you are going to put yourself out there, you cannot fight every single battle. And yeah, you're right. That's exactly what was going on with him. If they just embraced and said, yeah, this was me at the wedding 10 years ago. He was a 2-year-old kid, whatever. Life moves right on and you don't worry about it. You don't say, I want Yannetti to die. That's a weird thing to say when you're an investigator, Proctor. That's so weird to believe that. How about embracing him? It's not going to affect your life one way or another. He's only going to question, if you truly want to be a good detective, you want the right answer, even if you're wrong initially. And I have to say, I was wrong about Cannoni being fair. The fact that she denied the phone records for Brian Albert and Brian Higgins is insane now that I think about it. They never should have been denied. That data is so critical to solving this entire case. And the fact that she did that, which I didn't realize, I wasn't watching back then, and I made that statement, that's huge. I mean, because those two are the ones that are clearly involved in something. You're a judge. They're 10 people that could have killed John O'Keefe, and 2 of them are talking to each other at 2:22 in the morning. This is so, you can't get anything more incriminating than that. Even if it's not, let's see what's there.
Right.
That's
and
a
then
good faith
that's
basis.
also, by the way, within 3 minutes, I think, of when Jen McCabe's Google search is happening. So even if you don't believe that, there's still enough evidence right there, right, to say, hello.
Right. And I don't mean to roll my. Right. All collectively, there could be something there. So let them find out what's on there. What's the big deal?
Exactly. What's the big deal? And it was Judge Krupp, I think, that ultimately ends up. Wasn't it Judge Krupp? I think it's Judge Krupp, which is funny actually in retrospect because now I know him a little bit more. That ended up making the motion or ordering that those phones end up. I don't know what the proper legal term is, but that they were not
preserved,
supposed
maybe
to preserve order. Correct. Yeah. So I think it wasn't Cannoni in the end. It was a different judge, and I don't know how that ended up happening because I thought I would have been sued already by Brian Higgins, and I have an answer, and I have the preservation letters to the carriers that he has, and I haven't been sued. I don't know how many times I have to say it. I don't even have to say it with malice that you killed somebody, but I should have been sued already. This is like easy money for him, assuming he didn't do it. And I'm willing to risk everything in my life because I would lose everything if he's right. I'm accusing someone of murder or being involved in the murder. But yeah, those are the records you need. And I don't know how they got the records for the phone calls between them if they weren't able to have access to what they were requesting with the phones. The feds.
Is that how it came out?
Oh yeah, that's Alan Jackson's whole point. So the Alan Jackson, who's doing a kind of a media tour because I think the Reed files are coming or whatever, and he wants to promote that. So he is saying, like, do you understand how screwed we would have been if the feds did not come in and give us exactly what we were begging Cannoni to do?
No, I was wrong about that. Yeah, because that's just so fundamental to this case and goes back to your point. You have nothing to hide, then who cares? What are they going to see? Pictures of Brian Albert's ass? I mean, I'll look at it because it's like a train wreck. I would look, if I saw them there, but then I'd go to the real data.
Who cares? This is my whole point with all of these people. Like, if you're being accused of corruption and the fact that you haven't been sued or nobody's been sued or Karen hasn't been sued, what does that tell you? That tells you something important that nobody else wants to acknowledge. Chris Albert's like, oh, well, it costs money. Well, Jen McCabe is wealthy. Matt McCabe is wealthy. These folks have money, okay? Maybe not the Alberts, although he makes a pretty decent pension, about $8,000 a month, and he's still working, apparently, as an investigator. Like, and civil cases, by the way, are often taken, from what I understand, for free, where you only, get the money if you win. The problem is none of these people want the discovery because they know that they don't want the evidence to come out. You understand? These guys are lying. Like, I would never in a million lifetimes, as a psychologist, as a therapist, go on YouTube and talk about these folks, two law enforcement professionals, that they murdered another police officer, unless every fiber of my being believed that and had a reason to believe it, right? And that's the thing. The reason why they're not civilly suing anybody is because they don't want the evidence to come out.
Yeah, and that's what I presume. There is some argument that they don't want to even be bothered, I guess. On some level, they could say it's not worth it. But you're right, most attorneys do take the case on contingency. Did you see the emails? I'm not sure if they're true, how Karen was getting her attorneys initially when she had Yannetti, and apparently Yannetti was charging around $250,000 to try the case, and then he reduced it to $200,000, something to that effect. I may have the numbers off. And then she's trying to get Alan Jackson on board, according to this email. It's very interesting because a lot of people don't understand like how attorneys make money in these cases. And $200,000 is a lot of money, but criminal attorneys don't get that big pot of, like, I settled a case for $5 million and we get 1/3 as contingency, right? So like that's, yes, it was interesting how she was talking between the two, saying, if this email is true, it says that Yannetti's sort of out of his league with this case because it's going to be high profile, and she's trying to bring on Jackson to her team, and she's coming up with, I think, a $200,000 retainer for him, but she doesn't want Yannetti to know she's paying Jackson $200,000 because he's giving her a break, and she's trying to claim to him that someone else will be paying for it, which she says is sort of true. But it was very interesting how Karen's able to manipulate in a good way these two guys, because you're bringing in someone really that's going to trump the other person that you have. So it's a dynamic, but she's like, I don't want to destroy my relationship with Yannetti because then I'm going to end up with a public defender. So it was like a tough time for her. Now, assuming this email is true, I'm not 100% sure that it is. It is interesting to see, first, the finance, because people don't necessarily know how criminal attorneys, how much they get paid. Is it flat fee? Is it hourly? And it looked to be just like a flat fee for Yannetti, and same for Jackson, at least at that point.
Where did you see that? I didn't see that email.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. It's out there. I saw a good copy and I asked Emily for it. And I'm not sure that it's 100% true. So I'm just going based upon what I read. And the copy that I have doesn't look true. But I saw a real, like, legit email between Alan, and it sounds like
looks real.
Yeah, there's nothing nefarious in it.
This is this is in the Natalie group of things. Is that what it is? I think that's what.
I don't know who Natalie is. So
she's the one that gave us the. So Natalie was. It's a long story, but long story short, she was a person that Karen knew loosely from college, who they got, ended up helping Karen and ultimately helped her to find Aiden, kind of. But in that period, she was serving as a go-between between Aiden and Karen, because Karen didn't want to have direct interaction with the journalist. So she was getting, though, like, the documents. That's right. So she would have been a soundboard for Karen, somebody that not only do they have text back and forth, but she probably sent her things. Take a look at this. Take a look at that. What do you think about this? Should I say that? Right.
Got it.
She
Yeah,
trusted
I remember
her
now.
at that time. Yeah. So I
no,
think
this
Natalie,
was direct communication. Now, it could be fabricated, but this was direct communication. And obviously Karen had to handle that and had to bring someone else on, which was a smart move to do.
Right. And
Obviously.
also, Alan Jackson was a key decision. I was wondering how they ended up getting Alessi, and I wonder if was that because of her relationship with Yannetti? Was it Yannetti? Because they're like best friends. I don't know if that happened before the trial. I think so, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But that is the real key. It's not Jackson that's going to win this case. Ultimately, it's Bob Alessi and DLA Piper behind him, and the work ethic that I told you about. And that's the smart move. That goes for any criminal attorney. If you can get one of the top 5 corporate law firms in the world somehow on your side, if you have the money and there's no conflict, usually there is a conflict, then yeah, that's amazing. It's night and day. Now, apparently, it seems like Jackson, the one that attached himself to Karen, and then Yannetti and Alessi sort of like on a separate path. I don't know if they're even involved anymore. I don't care about like that stuff right now, but that's what it looks like.
Yes. Yep. I think that's right. I think it's very obvious that Karen and Alan are very close. Obviously, there's been all kinds of rumors about that, whatever. But they obviously became very close. I actually am fascinated by that psychologically, just because it's interesting. They both are very type A, so it's kind of interesting to me that Karen would be, what's the word? Submissive, I guess. Would definitely submit to Jackson, and she does. I mean, it seems like in their dynamic, he's the boss, which is really interesting. Some people like that. Like some people with really strong personalities, they almost need. I found this just from working with very wealthy people and their children, as a therapist, that the only way to work with the family is just to be like very direct and kind of put them in their place when you need to, because they don't have information that you do about this. It's not their area of expertise. Might be business experts and billionaires, but they don't have, mental health knowledge or experience. So the only way to deal with them is just to be very, very direct. Some people, that's the only thing they respect, honestly. So Gay 7 Me Too's, is that right? Gay 7 Me Too sends $2. Good afternoon, Benigno Bandits. Well, good.
Oh, you got a crew name? You got Benigno Bandits?
I love that. I don't know how to say that, but I love it. I love Benigno Bandits. Madeira Beach Caregiver sends $10. That's a nice name, Madeira. I did a video to photo edit of the Canton PD parking lot inside scenario. Higgins does have something tucked under his right arm when exiting the communication room. I'll email you the goods. Definitely email me the goods. That's very, very interesting. I did a video to photo edit. I would be very curious to see that. Yeah, I mean, look, that would be the smart decision, right? To go to the police station to get something. We know he's there for a reason. And as you pointed out, which I thought was a huge, just obvious point, but that I had overlooked, was that he had already left the keys to move the cars at the police station because they weren't supposed to be back until the following day. So there was no need to go to the PD to move cars because the keys were already there. He'd already,
according to him,
nobody
right?
expected him to.
Yeah. Who knows if those keys were in there? I don't think they give a shit about where those cars were moved. Now, that's what he says, right? So, yeah, if you're just going to take him for his word, right, there's no need for him to go back there for that.
Well, and they weren't going to, but the point being that they weren't going to be back.
Right.
That's true. They weren't going to be back, right? So if that's a silly
he had a long
thing,
day, Sam. It was a real long day. Yeah, I just wanted to get home.
I love when you do that. It's amazing.
I just wanted to get home.
So funny. So funny that they keep saying that over and over, but that he doesn't go home, right?
I love Alan Jackson at that point. Yeah, but you didn't go home.
But you didn't go
home. And then Higgy gets so offended. No.
It's so funny. See, that's what I love about Alan Jackson as an attorney. David Yannetti, by the way, is a boss attorney too, and obviously so is Alessi. But it's just what I love about Jackson, just from a psychological perspective, is he really is operating more on a psychological plane than any of the other attorneys. That's the whole goal, right? Is just to get under their skin psychologically.
Yep.
Andrea Patterson, 85, sends $4.99, says, "Hi, Sam and Vince. Since Tully and Berkowitz were the ones pulling the strings, is Proctor's relationship with the Alberts largely irrelevant? Love you guys." I don't think it's irrelevant at all, because Proctor does have information. So if you're the Alberts, it's in your better interest to make sure and keep Michael Proctor happy, because he does know stuff that, would be incriminating, even if it's just to be able to verify certain lies, verify certain botched aspects of the investigation. He'll never do it because, remember, his sister is best friends with, a person who's best friends with Julie, right? I mean, in other words, they're close. This is close. They're all very close. This is an incestuous town, and these guys are a part of that same community. I just don't see Proctor ever going up against them. But did you hear, Vince, that, I don't know if this is true, but that Proctor was working for Brian Albert in part of his investigation company? Did you hear this?
I did not hear that, and who knows if it is. But I sort of agree with this Super Chat is saying, because I don't think that the whole relationship was so nefarious that it was going to influence the case. Had Proctor done the proper job, he wouldn't have to even worry about the gift comment and the connection his sister had. But it does give the appearance of having a conflict. So would he have to recuse himself from this case? I'm sure he wouldn't give a fuck. If looking back in hindsight, does he have to have this particular case? I don't know. But yeah, I don't think that it was so close that he was initially affected, but it definitely has an effect because you know the person. It's better to just, if you're a cop looking at this or a trooper, it's better to just get out of the case as opposed to putting yourself through this, because you see what happens in the end. Everyone is going down and we're not done yet. So it's happening.
They're all going down.
Your life would have been so much easier and you had nothing to gain if you're Proctor. That's why I don't really get it. If you really were in actively trying to sabotage this entire investigation, you just have nothing to gain from it.
Well, the only thing he had to gain was street cred, because he was the big man who got the big case. And you have to remember that, like, for the first year, these guys got away with it. Everything that they did, they thought was working perfectly. They were stifling the defense by not giving them any of the discovery. They were keeping out of the public domain the case and the Albert family's name. It was really not until Jackson releases their theory of the case and then Turtle Boy picks it up that all starts, the public opinion starts to sway against them. So for the beginning, like, Proctor is the big man on campus. Everybody is just allowing, because again, you can see it in those text messages with the other cops, especially about the medical examiner. These guys just thought there was nothing wrong with what they were doing. They were 100% entitled to every move they were making. And the important stuff in Proctor's text messages are really not the, like, you know, she's a CUNT. None of that stuff is important to me.
Are those your words, Samantha? and by the way, Emily, if someone says a word, you have to read them. You can't go over. If you're going to sit there and take 3 hours or 4 hours to read documents, stop not reading the real words. They're just words. I think she would say our word. I don't even know what she was saying unless it says our word in there. You have to say the actual word.
Yeah, I thought she did a great job, by the way. She did a good job. There was a lot of like and like just, you know, mannerisms and such that she captured, I thought, pretty well.
I yelled at Corey for the same thing.
What did you say?
I yelled at Corey for the same thing. I think they were, whenever there was any type of curse word, sometimes they would read it, sometimes they wouldn't. Actually, Emily was mad at Corey for, I think they may have read Proctor's email, and Emily and Corey didn't actually go for the full C word.
I see. Well, it is offensive, right? But to me, those are irrelevant. They're confusing. They're almost beside the point. They get your attention, but it takes your attention away from the things that are much more important.
Yes,
like when he says, like, that's another animal we're not going to be able to prove. All the powers that be want answers. They want answers now. All of that is more important for our purposes because it evidences how important this case felt to Michael Proctor, how important this case was to everybody else, right? And how they really believed. I mean, they thought, you know, Brian Albert isn't going to get any shit for this because Brian Albert wasn't involved, because it was so obviously Karen Reed. Because look, they thought, and this is what I really believe happened because it's just more than obvious. They really thought that the cracked taillight, and it makes sense. It's like, you know, look, how many times, this is why confirmation bias is so dangerous and why, you know, people are not proven guilty in a court of law until they're proven guilty in a court of law, right? Because you can take things that seem like they have relationship together, like you can take the taillight, a cracked taillight, not a shattered taillight, a very obviously cracked taillight, a guy who was bruised and banged up. They didn't know, and you know, these are not brain surgeons. So they see John O'Keefe at the hospital, they see one shoe, and really in their very small brains believed one shoe, guy banged up, and then cracked taillight, and they just, that's it. That's all they need. And then you have Brian Albert, who they trust, right? And Jen McCabe, who they think has no reason to lie, right? That's all they needed. In their very small minds, the case was solved right then and there.
You're right. And if you're in their shoes, you'd probably be thinking the same thing. You don't get paid any more, any less for coming up with another solution. So this is it.
That's it. And you don't want to, and what are you going to do? You're going to start thinking Brian Albert did it? Of course not, because this is the town you grew up in. There's no part of you that wants to go up against Brian Albert, and it's his house. There's no way around that. It's either Karen did this or Brian Albert is somehow responsible because it's his home, right? That's it. There's only two options.
Were you going to say that, what are the chances that it is something else when you're looking at this from their perspective? I don't know if you said that or not, but what are the chances that it's something other than a car accident when you have all this evidence in front of you, the taillight, them admitting no one came into the house, and potential even some weird motive? What are the chances? It's probably astronomically low. So then again, if we did this type of investigation for every single car accident, we probably would never have any investigations done. So there has to be obviously a balance between the two. But there are a lot of things that they can learn from this case where red flags go off that aren't in the ordinary car accident. I don't know, like a broken bone. Let's something like that, in fact, right?
So here's the problem, and here's what confirmation bias really is. So you've already decided, but now information comes in that contradicts that. So you start seeing things like, oh, there's the video of Karen Reed backing into John O'Keefe's car. Oh, there's the medical examiner isn't, is saying this is an undetermined situation. There's all this stuff that starts coming in, and they, instead of looking at it and then going, interesting, they're just shutting the door and going, no, you're wrong, right? And then that was even worse once Turtle Boy got involved, because then it became defensive, it became personal. It wasn't about their detective work, it was about them. So once Aiden gets involved, there's just this huge doubling down that everybody does because it's personal. It's about the DA, Morrissey, and he has to put out this statement, which makes it even more personal. So now it becomes, like you were saying, about wanting to beat Karen, wanting to see this woman convicted no matter what, because now it's us or her, right? So at a certain point, could a police officer that they respect have come in and said, hey guys, you got to take a look at this. Have you seen some of this evidence? Might be something to this, right? There are these butt dials, and this is pretty weird stuff. At a certain point, if it was a person they respected, could that person have come along? Maybe. But once Turtle Boy gets involved, I think at that point, there's no chance that was ever going to happen.
Agreed.
They were just too dug in. Absolutely too dug in at that point. Oh, yay, we have new YouTube members. Welcome, Mama Bomb 115 and up. Member for 2 months. Faraday bag is a special shielded container. Oh, thank you. We have an official. That's awesome. Faraday bag is a special shielded container that blocks all incoming and outgoing electromagnetic signals, including cell, Wi-Fi, BT, GPS, and RFID.
Got it. All right.
Got it. Yeah. So essentially,
I don't think that's what they're doing to our kids, but
preserves the phone is what
right.
it does. No, that's not what they're doing to our kids. That would also be a lot more expensive, I'm guessing. That makes a ton of sense. Okay. Madeira Beach caregiver sends $5 again, says my 65-inch screen provided me great details for editing. I'll email you, Sam, email address. So for those of you that do not know my email address, let me try to put it up on here for you, because I forget all the time to do this. And if I don't do it right now, I'll forget to do it. There it is. Yes, please email it. I would love to see it.
Can we make any more letters in that email address? Holy shit. I'm never going to get
I know,
that
right? Well, but actually it's easier to remember, though, than it looks. Okay, so do we want to put this up on the screen? Should I put this up?
What do we got?
Your video. Do you want me to play it?
I think you have one more super chat. It looks like for
there's a few more, but
that's crazy.
Hold on, wait a second here.
If it says Karen's guilty, I promise I'd switch sides. Is it from Brian Higgins?
That's so funny. Sometimes I wonder, like, I'll get these comments, and of course, people that leave these terrible comments, like, they never say who they don't actually give you real identifying information, which I always think is such a cowardice thing to do. Like, if you're gonna leave a horrible comment or you're gonna say mean things, don't you think it would make sense to, like, say who you really are? But of course, they never do.
No way. If I'm doing a mean comment, I'm saying I'm sorry. I'll say I'm you. I'm not.
Right.
I'm
I know. It
big
doesn't make
pansy.
any sense to me, though. It's so crazy.
That's because you're so my
Yay,
normal.
Madeira Beach caregiver became a YouTube member. That's awesome. Thank you so much for being a member. That's exciting. At Go Fake Yourself, Megan sends $10. Both Colin and Allie's text screens, no, for sure. No, they're total nonsense. Tally, no. There's absolutely no doubt. Now, this is my opinion, and obviously I do not speak for Vince. Both Colin and Allie's text screenshots lack the date, January 29th, and 15-minute gap between 11:55 and 12:10. Yes, no. Colin didn't leave the house. Colin is at the house, but Vince doesn't believe that. These text messages are absolutely fraud. Totally agree with you. I don't know
They
why
should be
he
able to get
rules
to the
it out.
source data of it. I agree. They look shady, and they look shady initially, but there has to be source data from them, and it still exists somewhere. It's not been that long. And also, you also have Allie's Life 360 data, too.
Right, which proves nothing, but that's okay. It's okay. Allie's, you can't have it both ways. You can't say that
Confirmation bias.
you can't say that Allie's 360 data doesn't have any relevancy in one breath and then go, but yeah, it proves that she's completely accurate or not lying in another. Like, it either is accurate or it's not accurate.
Yeah, it's true.
And the
Because
whole
there
point
is
of
time
life,
when it looks like she's traveling after the fact, I know.
exactly. And they're like, oh, well, that was because I'm not connected to Wi-Fi. But the whole point of Life 360 is that it's not connected to Wi-Fi. Like, my daughter uses Life 360 to walk to school, right? It's like, well, she's not connected to the Wi-Fi when she's walking from school or when she's driving. How are you supposed to trust these apps if they don't give you accurate information when they're not connected to Wi-Fi? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'd made the representation that Life 360 was built for white parents to look over their white kids, and then you go on YouTube and all the kids show you how you can get around it, how you could trick your parents as the way you are.
Of course.
Like, God, if we had Life 360, could you imagine?
No, I'm so glad I did not grow up when my daughter is growing up. Thank God. We're all better for it. Jen's dog, Jonah, sends 499, says, Jonah wants to know if Vince has ever been bitten by a dog. Good question.
Yeah, I have. Right on like back of my leg. And the family came over and gave us $20, and my friend got bit on his arm worse than me, and they gave him $50. I was like 12. Yeah. That's how they settle things in the suburbs. They don't go to court.
This is in Long Island?
Yeah. Bethpage,
Where in Long Island?
Long Island.
Did you tell me this? Bethpage.
Yeah, Bethpage, right in the middle of Long Island. Landlocked. It was at 6th Street Park where the dog bit me.
That's very
I
funny.
lived
I
on
know
4th Street.
very
The family
little.
lived on 5th. Yeah. It's not
Very little about Long Island. No, nothing.
Well, you're looking at a product of it.
That's true. I know people from Long Island, just don't know the actual island itself. Abacus Flint sends $10. Sorry, Abacus Flint 05. Regarding Proctor, even though he knows planting evidence is wrong, of course he probably felt it was justified because that is the culture at the NDA office. 100%. Yeah, no, 100%. So what are the things that I'm having a hard time, Vince? And I wanted to talk about this, and it's coming up here now, so we're going to talk about it now. I'm having a hard time with this because last week, a week ago, I was saying my current theory is that John was attacked outside by Brian Higgins, or not attacked, I'm sorry, confronted outside. That actually, I think I said that John had swung first. But now I'm struggling, and I think it's really important that we figure out what time he pulls up in front of this house, because it does matter. And I want to get that right. So now I'm vacillating back and forth. Are there stairs? Are there not stairs? Could he have gotten into that house and gotten past everybody? One of the problems that I'm having is that all of these people who I know are lying in all these other respects seem to be telling lies when they are asked directly about John going into the house. Everybody says, he was never in the house. I'm having a hard time because it does appear that many of them are being dishonest, and I can't make sense of that if they really never saw him.
Yeah, that could be the case where if he was able to get in and not everyone did see.
Right.
But I don't think you need to have him in the house anymore for your case against whomever to be valid. He doesn't need to be in the house anymore.
No, he does not.
You originally
I'm trying
thought,
to figure out what happened, but yes.
Yeah, but the original thought was that he was beat in the basement. So you had to obviously get into the house in order to get to the basement. That's a huge difference than what probably really happened was that he was sort of on the side there. So your issue is, did he go in or did he not based upon the testimony of everybody or the data itself?
Well, that's the problem. The testimony seems to indicate that he went in. He was in that house. So what I need to know is, was he in that house? And does the data support that? Because the truth is, they could be saying, like, if you knew that even he was in that house for any reason at all, that could show up as deception, even if after he was dead, he's in that house. That's the problem, right? You could have never seen him, but have knowledge that he was in that house after he was already dead from a fall, and then be deceptive when you're saying he never came into the house. So the problem is they're being deceptive about it. Why? Did he go into that house, go downstairs, or not? And how do we find out?
Yeah, I would say no. You find out either through eyewitness testimony. You can make guesses based upon the data that you have with regard to his phone. It doesn't mean he went down the stairs or anywhere where his phone went. I guess if you're claiming that he was always with his phone, the biggest thing now would be the fact that the location data, when it's very accurate, doesn't always put him in the house. So that's an issue you're going to have. Sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. And if it's not, then the phone technically is not in the house during that time frame. So I don't think you have to obsess over it just yet, because that would only prove that he wasn't hit by Karen, right? The whole point of him going in the house was that Karen didn't hit him because he couldn't have made it to the house, right? So if we get sidetracked with that, then we could keep debating it. But I think that the data is going to show that he never went into the house, but was on the side of it so far.
I see what you're saying. So while he was walking around.
Right, like does it matter if he went in the house or in the side? If he did either, Karen obviously didn't hit him.
No, it doesn't matter. It only matters. Well, I'm already way past Karen didn't hit him, though, so I'm just trying to figure out what happened. Like, I know Karen didn't hit him. There's just no way. The evidence doesn't line up with Karen hit him. So I know that can't possibly be true just because the evidence does not support that. But then the question is, what does the evidence support, and how do we make sense of it?
Would Julie Bagel and Sarah Levinson be able to hold up this long, assuming that they saw him and then they lied about it? Or did he somehow get past them and they didn't? To me, you know that Brian Higgins isn't in the house when they're looking out the window. And the biggest factor here, and it's important to actually go back and watch the girl that was in the back seat, Ryan Nagel's ex-girlfriend, because when they drive by, Heather, she looks to the right and she only sees Karen. That means that John's gone. And that means what Karen originally said, that he left the vehicle initially straight away, is true. And she's an independent person. She has nothing to gain or lose, and she testified that twice. That's huge. Once you have John out of the vehicle, and she saw John in the vehicle as they were turning down the same street together. Yeah, that's huge to indicate. That's evidence, eyewitness testimony, that John left the vehicle.
Right, and that's actually interesting. The most recent sidebars from the trial channel highlight this because.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, you got to see it. It's really, really interesting. So very, very interesting. Right away, that's the first thing that we see is there's this whole issue with why it is the judge is asking the defense to let her know, what is your evidence that John O'Keefe was in that house? Because Lally's saying, well, there's 10 witnesses that say he never came in the house, and there's no reason to show a video of a bulkhead door because he was never in the house. That's irrelevant.
Got it.
And the defense is saying, no. There's these eyewitnesses that put him, that said what you just said, right?
Yeah. Well, she doesn't put him in the house, just out of the car.
Exactly.
So there's a big difference. And I think really that's been the problem that they've been having, is the fact is, like, I'm not sure if they're still set on him being in the basement. It doesn't sound like it from the actual lawsuit. Now they're saying house/garage, right? They never said that in trial number 1.
No, that's right.
In trial number 2, they try and make that a potential. But it does look like, based upon the battery temperature, that most likely he was outside and not concealed in the garage.
Well, that doesn't make so that's your interpretation of that temperature, but to me it looks like it's in a place in between.
Could be.
That's
no,
the problem.
It could be. It 100% could be, but it's not in a warm place like
it's not
the
inside
waterfall or the house, right? It's where that's insulated, because it would never go down that low.
Right. Yeah. Right. No, but I don't know anybody that's like, oh, he's up in the bedroom. I mean, I don't think you're right. No, he's definitely not hanging out in the house 100%.
Well, Yuri made sure. Yuri covered all the bases of who Brian Higgins was hooking up with, and he definitely didn't hook up with John. I love the fact that Yuri asked Brian Higgins straight away, did you hook up with John? Did you have sex with John? Or Karen and John? I mean, I know you have to ask these questions, but it is funny that he literally specified John too.
Do we really think he asked that question? I have a hard time believing that Yuri Buchanan asked that question to Brian Higgins.
I think he does, because he's kind of goofy European, Eastern European thing. They're not as uptight about this as we are as Americans.
You're maybe right. Yeah, maybe you're right.
Yeah, Proctor would never ask it, but Yuri probably could.
No, yeah, that's true. You're right. Listen, Yuri Buchanan. You have to thank Yuri Buchanan. You know why? Because he sunk this. He sunk it. He sunk the whole ship for them. He really did. So I got to say that.
Yeah,
that makes
and
me
that's why
like
I
him.
salute Lowley. I salute Yuri for being so bad on the stand, because let's say he was really good, then you're in trouble.
You're right. 100%.
Wow, $100. Appreciate that.
Whoa, $100. G.I. Josie Lou. Whoa, thank you so much. Brian Albert's phone was upgraded, never extracted, never turned in, but suddenly call logs available. They have had them. They've always had them. First 20 minutes, direct cross on Higgins. There's your answer. DOA 122452. Correction. Whiffins 12 minutes of inaccuracy. Okay, so let's take this bit by bit.
Let's take this word by word for $100. But Brian's
phone was upgraded. Right. So Brian says his phone was upgraded, that he upgraded his phone, that it wasn't extracted. The thing about the call logs with Brian Albert is that it's never been clear to me whether those were ultimately obtained by the feds or by the Commonwealth. And we really have no way to know, because the Commonwealth didn't tell the defense team that they had them. So we don't know. The Commonwealth was so bad about turning over evidence to, and this is one of the big things that the defense, or that Alan Jackson and Karen Reed are so upset about now, want to talk about and tell all of us about, is that they just did not turn over discovery, that they fought tooth and nail for every bit of evidence that they ultimately ended up getting. And a lot of the evidence that they got came from the feds, not from the Commonwealth. So I think that's where they got Brian Albert's phone information, and how it's now out in the world, I have no idea. I haven't even had time to investigate that. So I would love to know that. You're absolutely right to ask the question, because it's a great question, right?
Amazing
Who had
question.
them? When did they have them? And how did we get them? 100%. First 20 minutes, direct cross on Higgins.
Okay.
Dead on arrival. So why, I guess, okay, so in there is why or when he would have attacked John at 12:24:52.
I had said that was my initial hypothesis, that it was at that time.
Why?
Because I just thought that the way John would get knocked out was when he wasn't really expecting it. And that's generally how you can knock someone out, to the point where I believe he went unconscious from the punch or hit, and then obviously fell backwards. But again, there is movement on the phone past that. And there is a phone call that is actually answered for at least 8 seconds from Jen McCabe. I think it's at 12:27. Haven't gotten to that point so specifically. But then there's the movement at 12:32 where the phone is open with Face ID. So if this is true, then you have Higgins opening John's phone and also registering movement with the phone at 12:32. So that's a whole nother avenue where we're going to have to discuss.
All right, so here's the thing. Here's the thing about this time. 12:23, Julie Nagel's brother texts her here or outside or something. She then allegedly comes out at 12:24. So the problem here is that we would have Julie Nagel and the truck right outside at this point. So somewhere right before this would have been John going in, or walking by them, and Julie would have been essentially passing him, right? Because she came out the front door.
Right, but they were already there. They turned and they were parked, and John was out of the car by the time they actually pulled behind with the 150. So I know you're trying to say that it's 12:23. Either way, physically, Karen's SUV stopped, John's out. By the time Ricky's truck pulls up, they don't see John. John's already out and somewhere, either in the house or on the side.
Possibly be, though, because they waved them in front. So Karen stopped at the stop sign across from them. They let her go first. He comes down the street behind her. So they both essentially pull up within seconds of each other to the front of the house.
This is the thing where Lally was great. The only way you're saying he waved them by, only one person testified that he flashed the lights, meaning you go first. You know, when Long Island suburbans do that, like you flash lights, you go. But only one person actually testified. I think it was even just Ryan Nagel that testified to that. Lally was trying to say exactly what you were saying, that they were basically following behind. But if you listen closely to the testimony, Karen's car is parked when they arrive up to it. So there was a bigger gap than what you're thinking. It wasn't like they were following behind each other, trailing behind, and the truck saw Karen's car stop.
Right.
There was a gap.
30 seconds is what.
30 seconds is enough to jump out of that car fast and get away, either to the side or to the house.
But that means, this is really important. So, but here's where the challenge lies, right? So, because we've got two sets of people. We've got one person in kind of Aussie, that camp, saying that he pulls up in front of the house at 12:18, right? And some change. And then another group saying that he pulls up at 12:24, right?
Right.
So how can all of these things kind of, right?
Yeah. Either way, even if the times are all wrong, what physically happened was Karen's car arrives first, quick, and is there long enough for that Ricky's car does not see them stop and does not see John get out. So they're there at least for, it may even be 15 seconds. You know, if you're freezing, it takes literally 10 seconds to jump out of the car, and you know how small that place is to either get up to the thing, to get up to the breezeway. Hey, asshole, I'm over here. Or John, I'm over here. Come over to the side. Or John goes in. I mean, there's only two options that he has. But that all occurs before that F-150 is in sight, has a sight line to John at the breezeway.
Yes,
so
right.
Yes.
Well, and that's important because Julie Nagel actually comes out, right? So it's not just that they would have seen John get out and walk in. It's that she was coming out of the house and sits there for, she says, up to 3 minutes. And I know that sounds like, it sounds either like a really long time or a really short amount of time, depending on how you're looking at it. But either way, it's hard to imagine she doesn't see him. And actually, to your question, this is really important. She is 100% in bed with those people. Would never turn on the Alberts. Those are her life. Like she's.
I thought you meant literally.
No, she's not in bed with them, but she is as much or as good of a sure thing for them.
All right, let's go to the video then, because it's sort of on point to what we're talking about here.
Okay, let's take a look. I love this though. Thank you so much, G.I. Josie Lou. So helpful. Thank you.
Again, I'll believe for $100. I'll believe what anyone writes up there.
All right, let's add this to the stage. Here we go. Oop, what happened?
It's okay. It's pausing on its own.
Oh,
just if you pause it right there. Okay. That is 12 o'clock at Canton Library, right? And so I'm thinking, like, how could this be that Brian Higgins is plowing anything? Even Gay Jeff. No way. There's nothing. It's barely. It's just a little coating. That's it.
He's not plowing, right?
No. Okay.
No. 100%. No chance. There's no reason whatsoever to be plowing. Just didn't happen.
Agreed.
What we're looking at here, this is the view from the camera as you observed it on the security camera and as you provided it to the trooper, correct?
Yes, sir. Well, I was kind of being a smart ass, and I dropped the plow and I did a little sweep of the driveway, and then I got out of the driveway because I didn't want to get blocked in, and I parked.
When you do the plowing in the driveway and then parking, did you see Mr. Albert arrive at the house around that time?
Yes, so I made the sweep, and as I could see the vehicle coming up, I made the sweep, got out of the way so he could park.
So he had parked in the driveway around the time that you're parking on the street.
Brian said he was first to arrive back at 34 Fairview Road, and as a result, he cleaned out a space for Brian Albert and his wife Nicole to park the vehicle they were driving in their driveway. The weatherman came to trial number 2 and told us there was only enough snow to track a cat.
Enough to track a cat, 0.2 of an inch.
There was only enough snow to track a cat, but you had to plow out a space for them to park. Brian stated that once inside the home located at 34 Fairview Road, he observed Brian and Nicole Albert, owners, Nicole's sister Jen and her husband Matt McCabe, as well as Brian and Nicole's children who were home at the time of everyone's arrival back from the Waterfall Bar.
Now, at some point after your arrival, who, if anyone else that you were familiar with, came by the house?
I believe it was Jen and Matt McCabe.
You know about how long it was after you arrived that they arrived?
No, I don't know. I mean, I don't think it was much longer. People started, flowed in at that point.
Prior to sending John a text message at 12:20, "Where are you?" Brian remembers Jen being on the phone with John and giving him directions to the home.
I received a text from John saying where to.
How did you respond, if at all, to Mr. O'Keefe?
I was driving, so I called him. He said where to. I gave him the address, and then I believe I, just started giving him directions. And I actually think Matt spoke over me and was saying, go this way, go this way. I said, yeah, you just go down to Fairview. It's at the bottom.
Okay.
Sam.
Yeah.
Check this. Just pause it for a second.
Hold on, I'm trying. Here we go.
I think it's interesting that we have Jen's heart rate, and at this particular time at 12:15, it's at 83 beats, which I think is just a normal, active, awake heartbeat. But we're going to see something pretty cool later on, and perhaps if you believe that Jen is involved and is a killer, you would see a spike in her heart rate at some point throughout the night.
Can I tell you I told you so? Can I just say it about Jen in the morning? I'm just going to say it now before we get to it, because you don't see, okay, I won't give it away, but her heart rate is so fun. It is such a fun exercise. It's one of my favorite exercises, but I'm just saying, okay, I'm going back. It's such a fun exercise.
Discipline. Okay. So
Brian remembers Jen being on the phone with John and giving him directions to the home. Brian remembers Jen being on the phone with John and giving him directions to the home.
Well, he actually called back a second time. I instructed him that it was by a friend's house, his niece and my daughter's friend. And I said, oh, it's right. Go past Bella's street.
Brian remembers.
Okay, wait. Should I keep going?
Yeah, good.
Remembers Jen being on the phone with John and giving him directions to the home.
Yes, I said, are you coming here? Followed by 3 question marks.
What time did the location data indicate that John O'Keefe's phone arrived at 34 Fairview on January 29th, 2022?
First one right to the driveway was at 12:24 and 28 seconds.
12:24 and 28.
Correct.
At 24 minutes and 59 seconds, the device is unlocked using Face ID, and the message, you coming here, is read at 25 minutes and 8 seconds. At 25 minutes and 9 seconds after midnight, the device is locked using the lock button.
Okay, and here's Jen's heart rate. Here, you can pause that for a second.
Mm-hmm.
This is throughout the night, and from 12:15 to 1:17, there's no real spike in it at all.
Nothing.
Which
no.
I would say that, again, Brian Higgins was killed anywhere between 12:24 and 12:32. So,
John is killed between 12:24. Yeah,
right.
Go ahead.
I got to get at least that right. Yeah, so, I mean, it doesn't prove or disprove anything, but at least you're seeing a baseline with regard to her heart rate, according to her monitor.
And this is helpful, though. This is how I ultimately came to the conclusion that she was not there or immediately savvy as to whatever happened to him.
Okay. That's a heart rate 330. All right, here's where I guess you want to pause it for a second before we get to these beats. Yeah. So what about this was intriguing to you? Obviously, we see a huge increase.
Let's look at the times on this. So this is, you would expect to see this increase at, this group should have been in the space just before that, right? Because you would expect to see an increase in that time between when Karen calls and then they're out looking for John, because that's when there's some reason as time goes on to get to feel distress. But what we see is that the distress, number one, comes as they're getting closer to 34 Fairview, physically in space and time. And then look at this. 6:42. This is after John has been taken away. So you would expect this is when she would start to feel relief, because now the urgency, the man who we have to get into the, emergency help, the emergency aid, the man we got to get into the ambulance is now in the ambulance. And so any normal person would be like, okay, well, at least that part is over. But not Jen McCabe. No, she starts to experience distress at that point.
Okay, so let's be clear. At 6:02, we have a reading of 91 beats, which is increasing from what we saw, which was like in the 80s. But
it's actually decreasing, though.
Well,
from where
it's
it was
in the
just
90s,
before.
right?
Right.
But still, I just want to point
above
out
normal.
that the next reading is at 6:42. I don't know why there's not a reading between 6:02 and 6:42. Maybe she wasn't alive then, or her heart wasn't beating. Everyone thinks she has a black heart or no heart. So we don't have a reading. So you have to be fair to the data. They find John at what, like 6:05?
Yeah, right around the 6:02,
around-
6:03.
Okay, so
Yeah.
for some reason, there's no data according to the defense's report. But why would someone's heart rate get to 122 at all?
Well, I mean, right. For obviously, this would be the time when we would expect to see, an escalation in stress because they're trying to get John help.
Yeah, I
Right?
don't think this harms her. But what you don't see is this spike at the time when we're claiming John.
2:27.
That too. You don't see it during the time that she's allegedly Googling, and she sleeps like a baby. I mean, it goes down to like the 60s to 70s. I don't know if it's in this whole data sheet here, but there's no spike like in the middle of the night or something like that. And I don't know, this seems to me like the natural course of action. If you just gave someone CPR and it really was a friend that was harmed, you would see this type of reaction. I think it's more relevant to me from the time period at like 12:05 to 12:35 where John is killed, that there isn't this spike that we're seeing here. But you took this as to be that it's nefarious, this part.
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting.
Because, right, like when this is the time exactly when you would expect, now you're right. The one thing that saves her here is that we don't have the data from the 40 minutes before. But to me, this is a time where you would expect to experience great relief, not when you would expect to experience great escalation, because he has just gotten the help that he needed, right?
I don't agree with that. I totally disagree, but I get what you're trying to say. Like you would see at some point, but I don't think at this point, although it's sort of confusing, but it's only like 15 or 20 minutes where we're seeing like this huge spike and we don't know what's going on right before. I would imagine if you're giving someone CPR, or as you pointed out, she's at least over a dead body, it's going to flip you the fuck out. When you saw the video of
That's
Jen
a good
McCabe
point. Wait,
clapping,
yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, so that's true. That's true. Exactly. That's kind of my point. You would expect to see that, right? Now, like I said, the only thing that saves her is we don't have that time when that happens. We're getting the time after that happens. Do you see what I'm saying? Because this is
totally.
not 6:02 to 6:42. She's already in the house. She's now with her sister, waking them up.
Yeah. And again, I don't know how the body's going to react. And we don't even have the data, so it doesn't make a difference, just speculating. But clearly has a higher heart rate, technically, than any other point throughout the night. Sam, what I wanted to see was when she was standing up and clapping when John came into the bar. I wanted to see what the heart rate was then. We don't have it in this particular exhibit, because I think he comes in at 11, whatever the time was. But did you see her before that video, her reaction to John and Jen coming in? Sorry, John and Karen coming in?
Did the heart rate, or have I seen that? Of course, yeah.
No, the video when you knew that before, like she was
yeah.
like cheer. Oh, I thought I discovered the Americas when I saw that. I'm like, oh, Jen's like really happy, and I get it. Like you've probably done it before, where someone shows up somewhere and you're like happy, like you didn't know if they were coming or not. Like I totally get that vibe. I wasn't getting some nefarious I'm gonna try and kill John vibe from that video.
No, she loved them. That was, I had mentioned this to you before, but maybe I just didn't understand what I was talking about. Because my thing is, if John had gone into the house, she would have probably had a really strong reaction to it in exactly the same way. She would have been thrilled to see him, like, yo, hey, you know, she loved John. And I think it's very clear how much she liked them, that she was literally up on a chair, like screaming and clapping when they walked in the waterfall.
That's an interesting point. So can you back it up a little bit just so we can see her heart rate during the time when she was looking for him?
Let's see. We have, so that would have been it right here.
Right there.
Yep.
So you have
right here.
12:15, 12. Yeah, I mean, like it's pretty low. 12:49, I see 66.
Pretty low.
12:55, 70. Like there's nothing.
The only time it gets higher would be right here, like 12:10, but it's still.
She's leaving. She's not in the car yet. She didn't call him. She's calling him at 12:14.
Exactly. So this is
well,
early.
12:15. Look, it's like, I mean, it registered. How come it registers sometimes and then not others on these Apple Watches?
Who the hell knows? It's a good
question. I don't know.
question.
Yeah, it's funny when someone asks a question about a car. I'm like, I have no idea. I'm not. Look how my hands have no marks on them. You know, I'm not a real man's man. I don't know shit about cars. Yeah, I don't know why sometimes, but here you could see that her heart rate doesn't flutter until after. I mean, you have to be realistic with the data.
Till the 5 o'clock hour, right?
Yeah.
Let me just make sure of that before let's just take a very close look at that to make sure. Let's see when it starts to shift. Okay, so 3:30 here is when, so 5:25, it's right here. Sorry, wait, that shouldn't have happened. It's at 5:38. So this is when they are 5:38. That's approximately the time. I don't have this exactly. I'd have to really look at this. 5:38, is that when they're about going back to John's at One Meadows? That's right. That's about, or maybe the time where Karen would have been showing up right in front of her house with Carrie.
I hear Emily screaming somewhere because she probably knows exactly where she was at the time. But yeah, they haven't found them yet. They haven't been to 34 Fairview yet. So where else could they have been? They're either driving back to John's house.
Yes.
And then back to 34 Fairview by 6:02. I would say that she probably, if you were Jen and a friend came to you with this situation, you probably wouldn't be worried that much where your heart rate's going to increase. One, it's not like your family, it's not your child. But also you think John's probably just banging another floozy in the neighborhood like he usually does, right? Like you don't want to tell Karen that, but you see it gets real for her heart, according to this data, obviously after 6:02.
And arguably a little before that. But yes, I agree with you. Exactly. To me, you would think if she's totally innocent and does not know anything about John and him being dead, then she innocently would have believed it's not. Karen's crazy. That's the belief. Karen's crazy. What does she know? Why is she, why are we running around like a crazy person? Because clearly John is on somebody's couch right now.
Well, yeah, most likely in their bed, I would say. That's what Karen thought, too. We all thought that at that point, if you're amongst their group of friends. The last thing you think that he's lying dead at 34 Fairview.
Right, yes. But Karen thought that because, and that made sense. And there's a lot of reasons. We don't necessarily want to get into that. But I do believe Karen thought that because at that point, she realizes, okay, no matter where he was, he would have been home already by now. And he's not, and that's a problem.
Yep.
So that,
all right, so the last one is just your girls were quick. They had a guy on.
People. Yes.
Yeah.
Sean Jackson, is that who it is?
Yeah, and these girls, when they have a good-looking guy on, they all flaunt and they're excited.
This is fun.
You can count how many orgasms they each have.
Oh,
the guy makes one little stupid joke. It must be nice to be pretty.
He's really not that pretty, but it's like
first. Let's get this right out. Pineapple and ricotta on pizza. It's delicious. Just so you know, it's delicious. Try it.
I agree.
Does anybody hear that? Should I turn it up?
Louder, baby.
All right.
I
Pineapple
mean, you
and
just missed an amazing
ricotta.
joke. I mean, that must have been the
heard it.
funniest joke ever. I wish I was good looking like those guys.
Pineapple and ricotta on pizza is amazing, is what he said, in case you missed it.
Fantastic. Ricotta cheese. I made really bad content, and this person's like, "Oh, they made bad content. I'm going to bring up their content and talk about it's all there's nothing. It's all empty. You're the exception because what you're doing, what you're basically doing is taking all step by step, all the important evidence that you need to document, and you need to document it because there's so much.
How do you watch this?
I hate the word misinformation out there, but it is. It really is. It's not even it's like malinformation. Like, he was hilarious. He was like the funniest. Sometimes quiet, but sometimes in your
Talking
face.
about John's sense of
humor's
humor.
funny. She's the same way. Like, she's a quiet assassin with her jokes, though. She's not like overly funny, but like
John's mom was speaking about.
What did you just say?
Yeah.
What? Right.
From
Want a good one?
her
Want a good one
during
from
the
Mrs.
trial.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Keefe?
Yes.
I don't even know. Can we edit this out? Right? Can we edit this out after?
Nope.
Or is this,
Live.
Huh?
It's
Is this
live.
Oh
No
my
editing.
God.
Yeah, we're live. So
Yeah, whatever, right? What's the worst thing to happen, right? Worst thing's already happened here, so whatever.
people are
I'm
demanding.
going to tell you a
that
quick story
story.
that's probably out of school, but I'm going to say it anyway. so
This is about Miss O'Keefe.
So there were a few of us in the court. So in the courthouse, during lunches or breaks, we'd go downstairs, and Mrs. O'Keefe she would make sandwiches and spreads. Like, she would have food and drinks, and like she would just the day they came back to the house and they got the car, right? So Karen and her father go upstairs and they rush through. They get as much stuff as they can, and they were in a hurry. So they run out and they take the murder weapon and they get it out of there, and they go as fast. They cleaned up and made their getaway. Apparently, she left behind her dildo. Yes. Yeah. And I heard Mrs. O'Keefe say that word, and I was like, what did she just say? And she's like, I know, right? Like, she just left it. What? It's a moment.
Yeah.
Dark humor.
It's
Funny.
something you
stuff.
don't ever expect.
How do you know
Mrs.
it's
O'Keefe
hers,
to
by the
say.
way?
No. Do you have all girls, John?
Sorry, how do we know that it's Karen's dildo? Wasn't this John's house? Hello?
Are you saying Peg O'Keefe sounds for Peg? No, I don't think that this is John's dildo.
Why not?
I don't know. Come on, don't disparage it. Look, the guy sounds like a cool guy. He's a football
sorry.
player.
Why would he be a bad guy? I'm just saying, like, I get it. Okay, fine. Okay,
We're almost done. I know you can't say these.
Daughter? Do you just have daughters? Do you have any sons? Yeah. I have all boys. Yeah, I could. That's probably what I would say in the same situation.
God.
I didn't understand that last part, but apparently, Miss O'Keefe is funny, and this is like the thing that everyone misses, like the humor and the good parts of life, and the fact that he tells this story that Karen left a dildo, and you do bring up a good point. Maybe it wasn't Karen's, but if you're getting your shit together with your dad real quick to get out of that house, because I don't blame her, you want to get the hell out of there. If the mom's
of course
blaming me, I'm not gonna pack my dildo in front of my dad. Like, I'm not that cool. I'm not that liberal.
That's
right?
funny. Yeah. Well, I'm probably not going to be thinking about that. I'm probably going to be thinking about like the clothes I'm going to wear tomorrow, right? I mean, she lost everything. I don't think she ever goes back there, right?
Yeah, and that's a weird part too. Like, your whole life is there, even the kids that you're emotionally bonded to, and it's unfortunate that Miss O'Keefe sounds like she's a funny old Irish ladies. I know ladies like this. I always say, like,
sure,
older ladies are worse than guys. A million ways. If you listen to them, especially like even like the Italian old broads, they tell these jokes like you would be like so shocked. And when I heard my grandma like speaking, it was so great, but also I'm like, this is grandma telling like penis jokes, you know? Yeah, and it sounds like John was the same way with the humor, and obviously, I, somewhat dabble in comedy as well. So the issue is like, they have a good personality. Sometimes you lose sight of all that when you're doing all this.
Of
And I want to
course.
thank, Tuesday for coming up. And you see, like, I don't know who edited it, but every time Tuesday's super chat came up, they would just focus in on Tuesday somehow. So thank you to
that
the
wasn't
editors.
you?
No, that definitely wasn't me.
I love how, I'm not even going to comment. I'm just not going to comment and go
Go
above
ahead,
the
say.
fray
I know
on
that
it.
these girls bother everyone, but they do get good guests, and you kind of get an insight as to who John was. And it sounds like he wasn't just this like traditional cop, where he had an intelligence to him.
I don't know though. Wait. So I would say, according to Karen Reed, we're not getting anything on John.
What do you mean?
Her whole point is like these people don't represent John at all. That they represent Peg's side of the family, who was one-dimensional. Karen never liked, always had a problem with. She felt like John had that in him, but also had a sophistication that these guys don't have, that obviously Ms. O'Keefe and Paul don't have.
Yeah.
So I think you are. I like hearing from John Jackson. I like hearing from their guests. Obviously, Carrie's important. I want to hear from Chris Albert. And this is right now the only way that we can do that, because obviously they're not coming on with us. But these women are tough. They're tough. First of all, I have no idea what qualifies them to be experts on anything at all. And I'd love to know. I'm not asking that to be a jerk. I really want to know, like, why should I listen to any of you except for that you don't like Karen Reed? And I guess if I don't like Karen Reed, then I can overlook the fact that I have no reason at all to listen to you, or have no, like, why would I care? Mama Llama, her claim to fame is she's a complete asshole on Twitter and is a terror, is mean to other people. I think so. I think that's who she is. And she's friends with Jen McCabe. She knows these people, and she's a horror show to people on Twitter. That's their thing. Otherwise, most of the time, they're just talking about Aiden and his personal life. Like, I give a crap. Sorry if you do. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be offensive. I just don't care about who Aiden is having sex with today. I don't care. I don't care about any of the gossip around him. I care about this case. I care about how we're going to figure out who killed John O'Keefe and how that's going to get proven in a court of law eventually and someday, and so that we can figure out what happened to him. Fine. I care about their guests, but I can't. It's so hard for me to watch because there's nothing objective. And these guys, they undermine themselves. I've said it before, I'll say it again, because they'll say things that are just like, well, Brian Higgins, he didn't destroy his phone. And you're like, right, well, why? What gives you? And even if he did, Judge Cannoni said that doesn't matter, so we shouldn't think of it either. It's like, oh my God, is this really something that I have to endure? So I just turn it off because I can't take it.
I understand where you're coming from, but I gave you such a good piece of information. There was a dildo left at John's house. Doesn't that solve the case?
No, I'm really glad that I heard that. I thought that was funny. And like I said, I like John Jackson. I think John Jackson thinks of himself as a reasonable guy, has a really hard time being painted as like not a reasonable guy. And
oh, so really? Because I think that guy Plevin is way more reasonable based upon just small observations than that guy. Now, Plevin isn't good looking as him, but I'm just saying the other guy, Plevin, at least can somewhat have a different opinion.
That guy maybe likes to think he's rational.
Which one, Plevin?
No, John.
How does he have? How is he an ITAL with Jackson as the name?
I don't know. I don't know enough about him personally, but I know because I've analyzed other things he's said and done that it really bothers him that people don't. That he is not considered rational, or that anyone has ever looked at him and said, how could you think that? Or you're not looking at the evidence. He likes to point to the telematics, of course, because it's data. And he thinks that the data shows that Karen did this, even though there's no actual logic in that argument or real evidence to show that. So he has a hard time just not being considered rational.
That are older, Miss John's mother's age, that no matter what you're going to tell them, they're always going to believe this certain thing. And I believe that no matter what, she will always believe that Karen did it.
Of course. Oh, yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. So, like, I understand that. So I'm not even trying to get to her. I don't disparage her. And she's a human being. Her son died.
Of course.
But they're so obtuse in their thinking. They don't care about anything. If she believes that Karen did it, even if we have video of Higgins doing it, she wouldn't believe it. All right, because I
agree,
know people in my
100%.
life that are like that. So I'm not making fun of her. I can just accept her for who she is.
I agree with that. I have no problem with that. But I want to be honest about that. So I actually have to go here in a few minutes, so I want to get all these in.
Okay.
At Ericy B sends $20. Is there a cell phone tower dump? If not, can one still be obtained? Seems like a logical way to plot devices by time on January 28th, 29th, and 30th, but also on the supposed days of taillight recovery. Doesn't it? Or am I Delulu? I think you're right.
Yes, right. I'll take this. I'm trying
Yeah.
so hard. I have the identification of the towers that would identify all the phone numbers that connected to them during this time frame. Now, is that data still available? Yeah, I mean, it should be. Corey said that I can't get it through any type of a public search. These are private companies that have access to this. So if I was sued, I can potentially get it if the courts allow it via subpoena. But yeah, so that's the information on a tower. Any cell phone that connected to it, the number would be there.
This is the information that Proctor made a request for, but he made a request for it for only Android devices.
Oh, really?
that?
I didn't
Oh,
see
yeah.
that part.
Yes.
That's not gonna
So
help.
he makes a request for all this information, but he requested for Android devices, and everybody in the house had an Apple phone. That's a true story.
I know you have to go, but isn't it annoying when you're texting someone with an Android and that stupid green bubble comes up? I fucking hate it.
I told my fiance before when we were first dating, I was like, if you had an Android, I wouldn't have dated you.
Oh, but he had an. Does he look exactly like Tom Brady?
No.
Well, I can say this. Yesterday, Tom Brady and like an almost equally good-looking guy comes up on the screen. So I took a picture for you because you said Tom Brady's the only type you date.
Yes.
And you're like, oh yeah, I know that other guy. He only dates blondes. I'm like, I forget it then. Must be nice to be good-looking.
Yes. No, I did know. I did know them. Yes. Jamie's on 6181 sends £5. Higgy Bear was the first one to lawyer up. Yeah. Good point. He was probably going with his advice. He could talk his way into trouble. So wait, one thing we need to talk about. You just triggered my memory. So one of the things that Judge Cannoni says in these sidebars that you have to see, it's Brian Albert. So Brian Albert's on the stand. These are the sidebars for
yeah,
that.
I want to see that.
You got to see it. So one of the things that comes up is Judge Cannoni saying, so the defense wants to show that he destroyed his phone after the hold order came down.
Yep.
And she says, well, maybe his lawyer told him to do that. And I don't know if we can ask him that, because if we ask him that and he invokes his lawyer, then that could be a problem. And his lawyer's in the house right now, like in the courtroom. So let's do a voir dire on it. So it's interesting because I think I'd like to get your opinion just as a lawyer. But it's interesting because to me, it definitely sounds protective of him. Like, well, why would it matter if his lawyer told him to do that or not? Right? Like, if he invokes his lawyer, okay, fine, he invokes his lawyer. But it's still his choice to make whether or not he complies with an order or doesn't.
Yeah, and I get what she's trying to do, but it does sound protective compared to an everyday witness, and this witness is supposed to be not necessarily at all involved in this crime. So they still have that right to not disclose any attorney-client information, but I want to hear first before I give a definite opinion on it.
Yeah, you got to take a listen. Mackenzie 9498 sends $9.99. Tully knew the entire time. He may not have known that it was Karen, but he knew taillight was planted. Oh, yeah. He signed an affidavit saying it doesn't matter how evidence is gathered, just that it's right. But that's interesting. I wonder, where is that affidavit?
I don't know, but
no,
it
I
looks
agree
great.
with you. I mean, to me, Tully would have been the only guy that could have done it. It had to have been Tully because he's the guy that they're waiting for at the house. They're not starting without Tully because Tully has the information allegedly about where the car was. The other guy, O'Hara, does not. They need to wait for Tully, and Tully doesn't leave Sallyport until the car gets there. So has to be Tully. There's no other possibility in my mind. Somebody could have brought it to Tully, but there is no way that Brian Tully is going to, like, Michael Proctor's not doing anything without him knowing about it he has to know. Absolutely, you're 100% correct. 100% correct.
Yeah, Mackenzie, I can't focus with that picture. I just agree with whatever Sam says. Sorry.
Dove's House, $10 says, although I am pretty knowledgeable about both trials, I was shocked to learn just recently there were no DNA swabs of John's arm wounds. Do you think this point gets discussed enough? It's a good question.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder, they didn't cremate him, did they? Did they?
No. These are Catholics. No.
Yeah. It's odd. I probably could still do it if you really wanted to.
He's not.
I don't know how DNA works, but yeah,
you could still do it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know if it would produce if we would see anything, but of course you could still do it. DNA lasts forever.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on how preserved the body is, right? Ultimately. You could still do it. No, I think it's funny because sometimes people bring up DNA and they're like, yeah, there was no dog DNA, but it was on the clothing and then there was pig DNA. So it's like, well.
Yeah, and everyone has the theories of the treats are pig DNA. Yeah, it's
whatever.
Again, like if it was more critical to the actual crime, then I would be more into it. But my focus is not on a dog doing this.
Right. Miss Holmes 66 sends $2. Kate Peter tipped off Higgins that Aiden was there.
Okay, so that would make sense. He's not sitting there watching every car. I had heard something like that.
Oh, did she really?
That someone,
that's
because
funny.
I think
How?
Aiden had tweeted something that he was in the neighborhood. I guess the girlfriend at the time was living near there or something like that.
Oh,
Look,
okay,
I don't
that
blame
makes
Aiden. I would drive by Higgins' house no matter what. If I'm anywhere ever near there, I would.
That's funny that Kate Peter would do that. Sacred Justice sends $1.99, says, why didn't they have cars in the garage? Yeah, I mean, Brian, it's interesting because the girls over there, the Tuesday and Co., are like, I heard there was cars in the garage. But the funny thing is that if that's true, then they're lying under oath because Brian Albert testifies that they used it for storage, not for cars. So it's a good question. I don't know.
Nicole Albert testifies to this too. And you must be a big fan of Tuesday and Company because you know all their mannerisms. You do perfect.
Did I? No.
Yeah, you sound just like them.
Well, I had friends from Michigan growing up during college, and so I get the Michigan accent a little bit. It's like, yeah, I'll just say that. Were you gonna say something else? At Friend of Dogs sends $20. As a dog person and a former dog trainer, those are 1,000% dog bites and then pull marks from a canines incisors. Thank you. A dog teeth, 1,000%. I've seen injuries just like that multiple times. I love when dog people say things like that, but 100%. There's no doubt. I agree with you 100%. Thank you so much for your $20 super chat. Appreciate you so much. Did you have a response to that, Vince?
No, I agree. I mean, it most likely is. Again, I'm just looking for other possible opportunities because Tuesday swears they're not. So
you think? Oh my God, this is funny. Suzette VI sends $1.99. You think the new police chief will look into this? It's a great question. What do you think?
Although, like, the jurisdiction, I guess, automatically goes to the Massachusetts State Troopers because it's a murder. I don't think he has jurisdiction over this. Really, what you should be pushing for in your damn state is the Massachusetts State Police to do this. Now, if we do get a new district attorney in there, then everything could change. I hate like counting on that, but everything can and should change during that time, assuming that the person does actually do a full investigation. This case is not that hard anymore to solve.
Right. I mean, the DA is responsible. Those are the police that are responsible to investigate. So the new DA could bring in his people and investigate. And that the first time the feds only had jurisdiction to be able to investigate police corruption. Now, I don't know if that in that situation, if Brian Higgins and Brian Albert count as police corruption, but I don't think so. Looking into the death of John O'Keefe was not the goal of their exercise.
Nope.
Right. Bernadette Abohan sends $10 at Loop in the civil trial. Do you anticipate more data and new experts? Good question. Also, Higgy Bear not clapping back at you for your murder accusations with malice is funny and interesting, and I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, so with regard to the civil trial, if it's in federal court, we're obviously not going to get the actual video, which is going to suck. But there is the other trial, which is in a different court. Assuming everything isn't consolidated, yeah, there will be new data. There will be new experts. Most likely, they're not going to use the same ones as they did before. And then, with regard to defamation, there are certain claims that you can make and that don't need to have malice, meaning I don't have to prove, Higgins doesn't have to prove that I intended to harm him, even though I did it. So if you say someone committed a serious crime, if you say someone actually is bad at their business, or you say they have a sexually transmitted disease, those are all defamation claims for which he doesn't even have to prove damages or malice. He could just actually file it and then have a greater chance of winning. So, but I did it just in case there was any type of
question. Yeah,
exactly.
He's not coming after you, dear. There's just no way, because
I
then
don't know
you
that.
get that data. Yeah, but you just said it, because then you could get the geofence data that everyone wants. Well, that's the reason why he's not going to sue you, because then you get the geofence data that proves, who was where and when.
But in theory, like Karen now in the civil trial, assuming that there's an open discovery, she should have complete access to that.
100%. You're 100% right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yes. That's a good point. Good question, because that's actually where it should come from.
Yes. Right. We should get it.
Right.
At Songbits Laura sends $10. Maybe they all wanted swingers. Maybe they all wanted swingers thing too. Maybe since they knew Karen was interested in Higgy, then who would want to be with John? Can we look into that a bit? So people have actually sent me, this may sound funny to some of you, but I have had lots of people actually bring me
part of their
stuff
swinger
like
group.
this. No. Bring me this question about John and Karen and other people in the community. Because Jen, I think some people know this if you've tracked this case for a while, that Jen definitely had a little crush on John at the very least, for sure.
Yeah.
100%.
Who wouldn't, though? Yeah, that's
right.
I get
exactly.
it, but
No,
there's a
John was a
difference
good-looking
between
guy.
Right. The difference between being attracted to someone and swinging.
Getting my
It's
dog.
okay.
You take over first.
Go ahead. Thank you for the super chat. I'll read it through here. Sergio De Niro had a theory that Brian Higgins hit John with his tire iron from his Jeep, then went to the station to switch it out, the iron, with another. Sorry, it's really small for me. One from the same make and model Jeep parked at the station. Thoughts on the theory? Yeah, that could be something. I don't know how he would make that determination. And also, Sam, did the actual first hit had to come from the front in order to cause all the coup contra coup, or could have been something from the back causing that laceration? I think it has to come from the front to the back and then the force forward. Meaning,
It has to be forced. Yes.
Yeah, but could it, if you got hit in the back of the head first and then fell forward, obviously his face would have some form of damage.
Has
I
to
don't
be
think
back.
that's right. So then it's
Has to
so
be
hit
back.
from the front and then fall to the back.
Right,
Or
because
no hit
the
from
way
the
a
front.
coup contra coup, it's bruised on both ends. It's bruised on the front, it's like the brain gets pushed forward where there's a bruise, but then it goes back again. So it has to have been back to front, back. You
Right,
know what I'm saying?
gotcha.
He fell
Gotcha.
backwards.
Got it.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
does.
it's
It
a
does
good question,
look
though.
like he could have been hit with something. And I think, I don't know if you saw it at the very beginning. We took a look at this on Wednesday, and it is definitely worth taking a look at, but I don't have time to do it now.
Yep.
Auntie Skeptic 4771 sends $199 in pounds. Maybe Colin and Allie took Chloe and Julie. There's no way, because Chloe would only have been able to go with somebody, I think, closer. Not even Colin and Allie. Would have had to have been, I think, closer. Family. Like, had to have been one of the kids or dad and mom.
Yeah.
I just don't think that dog is going with anybody else.
Agreed.
Veo Red 22 sends $19.99. If they didn't act so suspicious, right? No matter what, when I hear any theory, I always revert back to not being able to get over how they were all acting. Amen. This is my problem. This is why I continue to scream and yell about it, because I can't get over it. And I'll tell you, I'm only getting like more familiar with them. And as I get more familiar with them, it gets almost more egregious. Like, I went back and looked at Nicole. Like, I can hardly take it, because it's just more egregious and it's harder to take. It's just, how do I still get outraged by it? But I really do. And you're 100% right. At eval7952 sends $9.99. If Karen would have testified, what would the prosecution questioning sound like? Great question.
Yeah, it would be
What do you
interesting.
think?
Obviously, if she does testify, everything before and after goes out the window in terms of the juror's mind, and all we're focusing on what she's saying. It's a huge risk that you take.
That's a great point, right? She becomes the focus for all the evidence goes out the window.
Yeah.
Yeah. At Kurt Smith, 3957 sends $5. What is your take on why the McAlberts told the long-winded and rehearsed story about military photos and Nicole Albert cleaning? It's a great question.
Yeah, well, we know that the military photos were to get both Brian's outside of the party in everyone's view, because they weren't. Because you got to remember that Brian Higgins is not in the house when they're all looking outside at 12:24, 12:25. And then at some point Brian Higgins has to get Brian Albert's help to do something with John's body. And that'll be another time for which, oh, Sam, I know you have to go, but if Brian Higgins walks into that house and you have Brian Albert Jr. and his two friends, who obviously they're just kids, what is he doing there? It must have been boring as fuck for him. Because if Brian Albert is like sort of fucking with the dog, then what is Brian Higgins doing?
Yeah, no, agreed, 100%.
Right, like
standing there awkwardly.
Right. So I think at some point he does overhear the conversation at that 12:18 point, and then either he's outside or makes that text to John.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, he's bored and sitting there, and it's awkward. I mean, he doesn't. In my mind, I don't think he goes back there unless he thinks that they're all going to be going back there, right? That Karen is going back there. That's the weird thing. It's like,
yeah,
he maybe wasn't sure, but I don't see why he would have gone there. Like, I think someone makes this point in the trial. They weren't close friends. He had never been there before, except for that one COVID birthday party with the twins. So it's not like he goes over after the bar all the time, and they do go to the bar together all the time. They are at the bar together. He tells us that they've been out, like, in the last 3 years, 50 times drinking together. This was at that time. So it's not like it's uncommon for them to be at the bar together, but he doesn't go back to the house after. On this one occasion, he's going back with them to the house, and it just so happens that Karen and John are going back.
And if you tie in the fact that he was just taunting a guy, that he's telling him to come there, all of a sudden it all makes sense. Yeah, there's a storm coming and you're going back to the Albert's house for the first or second time ever. No,
after
you were just
the long
taunting
day
a dude.
you had?
Yeah, exactly. Wow, yeah, that's interesting.
Absolutely. At Love from Tejas sends $9.99. Why hasn't anyone luminol sprayed 34? Is it possible the FBI has, or is it a situation? Be careful what you wish for. Love for both of your channels. Thanks. Good question. I think
it is a great question.
I don't think anybody's done it.
At some point, Brian had to attack John somewhere in the house or outside of it, but there would be blood somewhere seeping into something, in theory, unless they got rid of all of it. But yeah, I mean, you're living in a crime scene. It's insane that they could still potentially do that. I like that.
No, you absolutely could still do it. I mean, you might not find anything.
Right.
But you could still try. Of course.
Sure.
That would probably be why they didn't tell, or part of why they didn't tell the new owners that someone died in the house, right?
Oops.
Or didn't give them the whole skinny beforehand. It really pissed them off, too. And thank you so much for becoming a new member. That is wonderful. We're really, really excited to have you. Mandy's 4322 sends $1.99. JM kept calling John. I think they were looking for the phone. Yeah.
Yeah, people
What do you
say
think?
that. I don't think so. I don't think her calls are nefarious. I think she legitimately was looking for a friend outside who sees the fucking car and where are you? And that's why I don't think he went into the house, because Jen would have saw it. And yeah, and you know, that phone data with regard to the heart rate data may help her in this situation. If you just saw your friend get murdered, unless you're a cold-blooded killer, you're going to see a spike in your heart rate.
It is funny that Matt tries to tell us, well, my wife is cool and calm under pressure. Like, he actually tries to, I think what they're trying to do there is account for any possible spikes in her heart rate that would be against them or used against them. Because on the stand, Matt does say that, which is really interesting. I agree. I used to think that it's interesting, but to your point, Vince, I think Jen loved them and really might have just been like, are you guys coming here? What the fuck is going on?
Yeah. I mean,
It's possible either way.
Yeah.
And it's not clear enough from her testimony. My Sunshine, I love that. 326 sends $1.99, says Vinnie Politan did the steps test driving to 34 Fairview. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and
Check
you
it
have
out.
to do it with the actual same phone and the same operating system for it to really work, potentially.
Yeah, we have to or at least know what the differences were to speak to them, to speak to that potential, right? Hudiv sends $5 from Canada. The theory of Berkey breaking the taillight doesn't work since Proctor and Buchanan saw the taillight while they were driving back. Yeah, that's right. That's another great point. That was something Emily was saying to me too. You're 100% right. That he would have been staring at the taillight.
But if there was some taillight like inside that was like, it breaks inside because she hit the other car, or you just got to break a few pieces off because that's all you can get initially. I get like it can't be so distinct and so different from what they're looking at, but I mean, how close are those two dopes really looking?
Right. Yeah. Well, but they were looking. I mean, it's a good question. They're lying about the state of the taillight. There's just no doubt about it. Like, we know that they're lying about it. It's just, again, why?
I'm laughing at Higgy Bear. I love that he's my big fan.
I love it. I love this so much. South Boston Kev sends £2 at Vince. You still wrong, bro. And then he says, wait, sorry, I missed one. He says, please respect the House defendants. The Commonwealth witnesses.
I love that.
I love that too. That's tremendous. At Jake Hudson 8452 sends $2. Sam, I sent you a video I made for you to your email. All right, Jake, I will absolutely take a look at it. I wish I could take a look at it now, but I will take a look at it before Wednesday because I absolutely have to go. We do have new members. Welcome to all of our new members, Coco and Chloe. EAQ, welcome. Hopefully I got to everybody. Wait, no, there's one more. Let me get to you too. Celine the Bean. Hi, Celine the Bean 4 sends $1.99. What about the bungee cord? Oh, I know. Did you see it, Vince?
I did, and I think that the picture makes it look a lot bigger than it was. I don't think the J hook and the yeah, I think, and also the mark on John's head is really small too. So I don't think that it's from a J hook. Remember, he was wearing a hat too. I don't know how that would affect anything, but I know you have to go. We'll give it more time. I don't want to say one way or another. I do want to analyze that, though. It is important.
It's worth taking a look at.
Yeah.
It's worth taking a look at.
Okay.
And we should also look at it in perspective, like look at it in reference to the other pictures to get a sense of how big it actually is. All right, you guys, I wish I could stay longer, but I really do have to go. Everybody, enjoy the rest of your Monday afternoon. Vince, this was fun. Thanks so much for doing it. Next time, we will have a guest, and I hope to see everybody there. Bye, everybody. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. Bye, guys. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye.
It is the defense counselor's duty to protect the rights of the individual, as it is the prosecution's duty to uphold and defend the laws of the state. Justice for all. Only we have a problem here.
I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. I see the world through eyes covered in ink and bleach. Cross out the ones who heard my cries and watched me weep. I love everything. Fire spreading all around my room. My world's so bright, it's hard to breathe, but that's alright. Hush.